I think we should be rolling.
All right, guys, what's up? So we're on the podcast.
We're going.
We're live and we're on time.
For once.
We're usually on time, but sometimes, sometimes it's just like jiu-jitsu. We're kind of on like the Brazilian time. We show up a few minutes, like 5 minutes late.
5 minutes.
So as you guys are coming in, let us know where you guys are from, and we'll make sure everything's going smoothly, and then we'll jump into the podcast. And today what we're going to talk about is the 2021 Nogi Worlds. Do a little recap on that, tell you about how everything went. Along with that, we'll talk about some takeaways that you can use as a competitor yourself, or even for your training, some of it. And then afterwards, we'll do some live Q&A, which you can jump in on as you guys are in here in the chat. So we'll get going here. But got Stephen Pierce there. Says, hey, he's from the UK.
Stephen Pierce.
You know, my favorite part
my
favorite part about people from the UK is the way that they their profanity.
Yeah,
because like it's different than ours, and then some of the words sound so ridiculous to us, or the terms that they use. Because it's so interesting. Like when you go from place to place, like some of the things that we say that we consider offensive are not remotely offensive there, and vice versa. So it's interesting.
Blimey, is that something that they say? Or is that Australian? I don't know. I would probably, whenever I do like a British accent, it's probably half Australian, and there's a lot of difference between them. But I don't know. It's probably because you're an offensive American that's dumb. Offensive Russian-born American citizen that lives kind of in the South, but speaks with a country.
We're in the near South.
Yeah, Louisville's a cool place though, man. It's kind of like it's very unique to the rest of Kentucky. Really,
it's different. Yeah,
it is. I mean, it's like this cool little city. But anyway, Fort Hood, Texas. Daniel Murray, Finland. You ever want to go to Finland? I'd love to go to Finland.
It'd be an interesting
cool.
Place. They have the like in World War II, they had the most like decorated sniper, the sniper with the most kills.
Really?
Yeah. Like it's actually like interesting when you look at like the Finnish troops.
Yeah,
they were like basically running around on skis and stuff, and they pick.
Oh my god!
Dude, it's really
what's that Olympic sport where they're on ski? They ski and then they shoot.
I don't know. I know what you're talking about.
I can't think of it. It's got a weird name. The name doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't match. It's something like a something Lathon or whatever. Like,
but it's like really like it's supposed to be very very difficult.
Yeah, it's like cross country shooting and skiing.
Yes.
Yeah,
and they're in like phenomenal shape because they can get their heart rate really controlled, so they can take these like long distance shots. Pretty awesome. Guys, while we're
he just listed it. Simo, yeah.
What is it?
There we go, Simo. That you guys knew it. I like it. We got some other fellow military history buffs in there.
Okay, that's the name.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, that's the dude.
That's cool.
He's like
Charlie W. Thanks.
Yeah, so it was like a bunch of people. So appreciate you guys for being a bunch of military history geeks too.
That's super cool. Guys, while we're waiting, just thanks to our sponsor, Charlotte's Web. CBD of our choice.
I got a cool from a couple people when I was gone in the Worlds. Several people sent me emails and said that they used it, and then they like one of them used like the balm that we had, and then some of them, one of the other guys, he used the sleep gummies, and both people had really positive experiences with them. And so they sent me messages, and the one thing that I was really happy about is that they were like, "Thank you for not just trying to, thank you for not being a shyster." Because they used it and they were like, man, this actually really helped. Like one of the guys used a balm on a injured part of his body. It helped. Another person used a sleep gummy, slept like a rock. So I was happy about that because again, with me.
Sure. Like I think we get offers all the time, and it's kind of like, well, we're gonna just do stuff that like, because nobody's gonna believe what the hell you say. They're gonna be like, well, you're full of crap. You're trying to push stuff on us.
Also, I'm a terrible liar. I couldn't get up there and like talk about like stuff I actually use if I'm not using it. Like remember those like old chalky protein bars?
Oh yeah.
Like you open them up and they fell apart, and I was like, I'm not touching these, But guys, if you guys want to check them out, you can go to charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu. Save 15% on the order. Again, I'm a big fan of the products, and so if you want to try it out, give it a whirl, and you can save some money in the process.
Yes, and Matt from Roll BJJ.com. Matt's
I'm rocking the Chewjitsu Podcast shirt. So fun thing about Matt's thing. So obviously he's got some great stuff on there already. There's a shirt I wore in a recent video where it basically says Jiu-Jitsu because nothing else makes sense.
Yes, which
has become one of my favorites. You can check it out at his website. But we're going to be doing a rash guard and shorts order soon. Right now I've got like the prototypes, and I'm going through and just kind of ironing out kind of what I want it to look like. Again, there's a couple small adjustments I may make, and but the quality of it's good. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited to share it with you guys. So those will be coming up probably within a month or so. So we'll be doing a pre-order on that. So again, you guys will be able to get those. But you can check out any of his stuff at epicrollbjj.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu, 15% on the order. And again, I'm just saying this with you. I like his stuff, and I like his stuff so much that I wanted to do an order with him. Kind of happened the same way with Origin. I liked the gi order, so I did an order with him. So you can check that out as well.
Yeah, let's get into it, man.
So let's jump into it. So, the 2021 Worlds. So one of the most interesting competitions from my standpoint, because I've never gone into a competition and the unknown been like how my gas tank was going to hold up. So one of the things I've always, since I was a purple belt, like I went to a competition as a purple belt and I gassed out. And I remember like having this feeling like I don't ever want to feel like that again. Yeah. And so I started really becoming conscious of really pushing myself and improving my cardio and everything else. And this was the first competition that I've gone into where like the unknown, because every competition is unknown, but the biggest unknown that was on my mind was what's going to happen when I turn up the burners and go. Because back in September, the very first week of September, I got COVID. And then after COVID, it really only beat me up for about 2 days. You know, I had like a really mild fever and a little bit of cough, nothing crazy, nothing like anybody else. Like I'd still go for walks and stuff, you know. And then I took my 10-day quarantine period, got tested, it was negative, and then came back. And when I came back, like I noticed pretty quickly that like my wind was just not there yet. You know, as it was still lingering around a little bit. And so that lasted for several weeks. And during those several weeks, I really couldn't train that hard, because if I trained hard, then it would irritate the symptoms. Yeah. And I would like start coughing more and everything else. And then I remember my first hard day, the first day that I would consider like was actually a good practice was like, let's see what day that was.
By the way, while you're looking that up, like you had like a respiratory thing before that for like a week.
It was October. No, it was it was October the 4th, the very first. So basically literally a month from the COVID was my very first day of actually getting decent training. So yeah. And it was a thing too. So yeah, so I had an upper respiratory thing, which happens sometimes. Sure. I don't have them that bad, but I was out for about a week with it. And it was just that, you know, we're hacking phlegm up and everything else. And there, a lot of the guys in the gym who are nurses say there was a lot of upper respiratory stuff going around, like more so than usual, like because it wasn't the season for it. Cause I got that back in like August. Yeah. And so in August, you typically don't have really hardcore upper respiratory seasons, but it was like hitting like winter. It was like, it was very weird. Right. Because it's interesting. Like when you think about like hospitals, after talking to them, there's a lot of forecasting. Yeah. They expect certain periods of time to be bad, so therefore they staff it differently. Sure. Right. And so they were having that going on, and then COVID started up on top of it afterwards, and it was a mess. But had that, and then as soon as I got over that, you know, I rushed into doing the camp, and we were traveling for the podcast stuff, and then came back and was just pushing myself. Then I was like, all right, I'm going to get ready for Worlds right after 3 days of like back to back training and giving myself away to people for this camp. I should have taken a couple of days off to relax.
Probably longer than that.
Yeah, I should have taken at least maybe a week of slow time to come back. Yeah. But instead, the next day, I was like, okay, I'm going to push myself. I'm going to get up a little extra early that morning. So I sort of got in the middle of my sleep after coming back from all that, and that's when I think I got COVID. And that's why I think I got it.
You just kind of ran yourself. Your immune system was kind of worn out, and I think usually, I'm sure we've been exposed, bro. We've been exposed. I've
been exposed so many times. Like the past year before I got it this time, I literally would roll with someone who would then go get tested, be positive, would have symptoms. Like, I mean, they weren't just asymptomatic. It was like, it was legit. Yeah. But I think that my body was just weakened, and that's what allowed it to come in. And
I agree.
So it is what it is. It's just like staph infections. You know, staph infections, you get staph all around you, but then when your body becomes susceptible to it,
for sure,
that's when it takes root.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
so I had all that mess going on. Finally get done with it. And I'm still dealing with allergies because it's allergy season, and, you know, and it's like my body's just a little bit more susceptible to it. So, but last Monday, October the 4th, I felt good. Felt like I had a pretty good training session. I didn't feel funny afterwards, like worn out from it, more than sore muscles and stuff. Sure. So I was like, all right, let's see what happens. And I really was not sure until the day of the competition, because I kept second guessing myself, you know. I was like, let me see how I feel. So I got a warm up with Brandon, and we got a real good warm up. I felt good. And I was like, okay, let's just see what I can do out there. And, part of it too, this is my own thing. I kind of like, if it wasn't for the guys at the gym, I don't know that I would have done it.
Yeah. We were kind of playing some, I don't know if we were playing mind games with you, but we were kind of just like, dude, come on, you're already going. Like, you got nothing to lose kind of thing. I just think that, like, I don't know if you put a ton of pressure on yourself. You probably don't, but we were like, dude, we know what you've been through. Yeah. Like, just go do your thing. Like, you're in our opinion is like you're 75%.
I was not saying.
Well, I'm just saying you're 75%. Whatever you were, I was like
about like 35.
Well, anyway. What I thought was like, the state you're in, you're going to be good enough to pull out a victory, and you did well. I know you're not gonna. I know you want to win. Everybody wants to win.
Yeah,
but
I was happy. See, I was happy with the results.
Absolutely.
I was like,
good. I'm glad you were.
The results were good. I was like, well, there we go. I surprised the crap out of myself doing that. My thing was, as I was going in, like I said, with probably like a 25 to 35% gas tank. My rolling technique is still good. That doesn't leave you. My timing was off.
Yeah.
And my gas tank was crappy. But
and
I decided to do it. But the reason why I say the people at the gym is because, it is what it is. I mean, it's part of what I'm supposed to do. Like, I like, it's like a lot of times, here's an example. On the YouTube channel, I share a lot of stories about things that had happened in the past. Right. And then sometimes people will go, that's a lie. That never happened, whatever. And I'm like, bro, it's just because, I mean, I've pushed myself to do challenging stuff and I've had some experiences, so it's like, those are real things. And so this was just one of those things where I talked to my doctor. I was like, hey, listen, like, do you think I'm going to be seriously injured from doing this? Is it going to have any long-term effect? He was like, where you're at right now? No.
Yeah.
It'll probably irritate some of it, whatever, but not taking long-term. You'll be okay.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, that's all I needed to know. He just told me that, you get out of the first match, you're probably going to be cooked afterwards, which was true. But knowing that, I went in, but I want to do challenging stuff, and I want to, like, it is what it is. I like to, like, inspire the students to do stuff that's challenging, people online too. Cause again, it's one of those things where your tournament prep's never going to be perfect. So, and I tell this to people all the time, hey, sometimes you just got to go out and do it. And I'm like, well, I got to take my own medicine.
Yep.
And so went out there and did it. And I was actually happy with the results overall, considering how everything was going into it. I was happy with the results.
So you, if people don't know, you had 3 matches. You ended up having 3. Mm-hmm. You can kind of talk. Let's break down the first. We'll break down all of them, but you end up getting 3rd, which is great. That's fantastic. So first match, what kind of went on the first match?
So first match, got my warm up, and it worked out perfect. I did my warm up. I just did a video and kind of talking about my pre-match warm ups and like stuff like that. You can check that out on the channel after the podcast. But got my warm up, and almost immediately they moved my match up. So, like, I was supposed to be in about 20 minutes. 5 minutes later, they're calling me down. Okay, let's do it. So then I go up there and I go compete against this guy. I shoot him for a takedown pretty quickly. Don't get it. I got him down, but it ended up being an advantage because he's able to scramble out.
Got out of bounds, right?
Yeah. Well, it was like out of bounds, but then it was out of bounds. It was kind of weird how it happened. But then I went for another takedown. Couldn't quite nail it. And then the third one, I got an arm drag. I kind of, like, basically after I went out for my 2 opening takedowns, I started kind of reading his body a little bit. And it's like, okay, I think if I do this, and I arm dragged him, and I was thinking that if I came around to the back, I'd probably be able to get him down to his knees, which was the case. And once I was down in there, I was in half guard and I did a straight arm lock. I do basically for those of you that are members of it, I have an arms race. I call it the arms race series. And inside that thing, I talk about what's called an arm scoop position.
Yes.
And it's the way, if I scoop up that arm just right, scoop up that elbow just right, it basically leaves their arm really exposed. And I've got wrist locks, Kimuras, straight arm locks, for days right there. And I have a really high rate of finishing the straight arm lock. And it's from that position. So I got in there and did that.
Yep.
Win that first match. And if you watch the match on Flow, you'll see me breathing. I had the arm locked up, and I was taking some deep breaths.
Is that the one you looked at the camera or looked
at
the
I wasn't looking. I was looking at the score table, looking at the time, and I was taking some deep breaths, bro, because I was sucking wind.
Yeah.
Second match come out, and the guy pulls. I pass really quickly, and then as soon as we passed, I did a step over, went around to the back, and then ended up getting another straight arm lock. When I got that straight arm lock, afterwards I get up and I sit on my knees for a second with my heels to my butt. And I took a deep breath, and I was thinking in my head, damn it, I'm glad that was a fast one.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have it in me. Then the final match, I went up against a guy who's a very tough opponent. His name's John Thomas. He's at Attack Team. Super, super legit. And we went against each other, and he pulled, and I tried to pass. And, you know, my to have a guard, to pass a guard like that, my timing would need to be sharper. Right. My timing wasn't very sharp because I hadn't been drilling my moves like I normally could during training. And so I was just a beat off from a lot of different positions. And I remember having this moment where I didn't feel very threatened from the guard, but I didn't feel like I could pass it at the time either. So I was like, well, what could I do? I could either like stall out and just try to maybe win a ref's decision, or I can just try to pass it anyway. And maybe I can and go down like, you know, guns blazing, you know. And I was like, well, I'd rather die on my shield. I want to go after it. And so I kept trying to pass it. I ran out of steam in about the last minute or so, and, you know, basically wide open. I remember he came up for a sweep attempt. He tried a couple other ones, but that last one, he comes up, and I had an overhook. And I went and watched the match, and I was like, man, I could have just easily kicked out of that and got out of it, but I just was out of steam, man. And against a good opponent like that, if you're not right on the money, if you're a second too late, that's it, you know. And so basically I'm registering things too late. He comes up, beautiful sweep, comes up, gets his sweep. Then he's up 2. It's got about a minute left, and he's not an easy person to sweep. I started diving for knee bars and everything else in the match, and it just wasn't there. And you know, he won on 2 points. It was a good close match. And afterwards I was sucking wind for about another, you know, 5 minutes to catch my breath, and then I was good. You know, but definitely was not my best performance, but it was a fun experience because, again, for me, pushing myself through it made for a fun story, you know. And again, I like fun stories. It's good fun experiences because at the end of the day, the medals come and go, but the memories are what you have.
Yeah, I think you can be proud of that. Like that, what would you have told you if there was a student in the same situation you were in? Like you would probably told him to go after. Right?
I would have.
I would have told him to sit back and just hold. Because honestly, if you would have sat there, you were the one primarily attacking. You know, you were the one that's trying to pass guard. You're attacking. So
yeah, I was engaged, and so he was doing a very good job defensively.
He was like a butterfly. He was playing like a butterfly.
Played butterfly, and his hip. He had like Mark's guard, like
like the little
knees
knee
come
up.
up. Yeah. And so I was the offensive person, the aggressor, but his defense was very good. You know, but in a ref's mind, had I just basically continued that a little bit, I probably could have got the.
You probably could have stayed there, yeah.
But like, you know, again, it's just not the way I play jiu-jitsu because, like, for instance, here's one of the things I saw this weekend, and it sucks. It's like, for me, this is the way I look at it. One day I'm going to be an old man and get ready to kick the bucket, right? And I guess if maybe you're an adult black belt and there's a lot on the line, maybe you do this differently. But you know, if you're like a master's like me, I'm a master's guy. I'm just an old man out there playing around, really, when you get down to it, you know? And so for me, like, this is more for me. And when we do jiu-jitsu, it's a martial art, and there's that art side to it. And we get to make our art when we're out on the mats with our movements. Imagine like you had a picture and you know, you had this vision for a picture, but you decide to play it safe and not really go for it and not really paint that picture. You may not like to see, you might not want to look at that art. Right. But then like if you really go out there and you express yourself and you make this beautiful painting or this beautiful sculpture, whatever it is that you really want to do, it's like something that you enjoy looking at. I want to have matches where I can watch them and go, man, that was entertaining to me. Because like I've had matches before that were like boring where I didn't really go for it. And it was basically like our ugly wrestling match on the feet and no jiu-jitsu happened. I'm not happy with those. Even if I win, I look at those and I'm like, I could have done so much more. And so I don't want to have to look at those matches. So for me, I want to be able to look back at them and say, here's my work. I love looking at my work. I love actually looking at this thing because, you know, win or lose, it's going to be entertaining. There's action and I'm going for it because, you know, like, one of the things I do like about masters divisions is the matches are 6 minutes. Like 6 minutes, like normally all day long, I can go wide open. 6 minutes, I can just go. I don't have to think about the cardio. You give me like a 10-minute match, it's different. 10 minutes, 10 minutes is a long time to go wide open. 20 minutes, you know, so I tend to, and I'm bad about it, man. I just like, I get out there and I used to be a slow starter. Now I'm the opposite. I just want to get out there. And like, once I'm on the mat, I just want to go, I want to pull the trigger and get after it, you know? And so for me, like I saw a lot of matches this weekend where guys would win on the smallest margins. And like, you knew they had more in them, but they like weren't like, there was one match I watched where the guys basically, it was 2 guys having an ugly wrestling match. Neither one would pull guard. Neither one really went for a definitive takedown, you know? And And I imagine it's because they don't drill their takedowns that much, you know, which I don't understand why you would try to wrestle if you don't drill takedowns all the time. And they get on the ground eventually, and all of a sudden, bro, they start exchanging positions, and I mean, it was a shootout, like on the ground though.
Right.
I was like, why didn't we do this 5 minutes before? This would have been a great match, because you really would have gotten to see who had better jiu-jitsu, and even both of them had better games on the ground than they did on the feet. On the feet, they were like, I mean, their wrestling was like very subpar for the level that they were, you know. So it's just one of those things. I want to go out there and I want to push it. And I want to have something where I'm happy and proud of what I did, win or lose, when I look back on it. Because for me, it's not anymore. It's not so much. I've won a lot of cool stuff. I've got some Nogi Pans medals and all that stuff. I've got all these things, but I want to make sure that when I'm done with it, I want it to be like, that was a cool match to watch. If someone's watching it, I want them to be like, oh, Chewy's up. That's going to be a fun one to watch. Not he's going to win, but he's going to win on like 1 point. And it's going to be the biggest snooze fest you ever seen.
Yeah. There was you mentioned wrestling. Wrestling was wrestling was huge, especially the blue belts,
blue and purples.
Wrestling was insanely, like, I mean, the guys that, we have Brandon, who was on the podcast last week, won worlds at his weight at blue belt, and he's been training less than a year. And then
and by the way, it's so funny about him because he's such a good wrestler. I didn't know where to put him in the division, because you're like, okay, do I do a blue or purple belt, right? Because you don't know. I don't want to sandbag, right? So I put him as a blue belt, and every single ultra heavy that he went against at the tournament was a college wrestler. So I was like, perfect. We did the exact right thing.
Right.
The guy that he lost to in the finals, he's a Division II college wrestler. I think he's a national champion.
Yep.
Very good, and he's got better jiu-jitsu than Brandon at this point. So
he's one of the guys at Pedigo, and they're tough out there. I think Brandon's actually, there's a picture when I was looking for our cover for the podcast. I was going through Brandon's Instagram, and there's a picture of them two smiling together. So they've kind of trained together a little bit already, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And Pixley's tough. He's super tough.
Yeah,
very good.
I mean, he had a lot of fast finishes. Well,
that's something to think about. So as we're getting into some of these takeaways, that's one of the things too, is when you're competing, you need to know what your game plan is, because probably one of the biggest. One of the biggest things that will kill you early on, or what will defeat you before your opponent does, is indecisiveness. You can't be indecisive in a tournament. You got to be decisive. And one of the things, if you watch some of the good competitors, you see them use the same techniques over and over again. And if you watch Pixley, he used the same, he started using that Darce and guillotine choke. He had some arm chokes. And I mean, if you watch he did that one where he did this huge takedown. This guy comes, I don't know what the guy was thinking. I felt bad for him because he walked into him. To me, I'm thinking, like, if this is like a high level wrestler, I'm not going to try to get a deep underhook and walk into him. But he did. He walked into him, and I mean, Pixley threw him. He landed hard onto his side. Yes. And before he even landed, he was already switching to the Darce. And that's a sign that dude's done a Darce a bunch in the gym. And so again, that's an important thing. When you're competing, you need to know a game plan. You need to know what your moves are, because that's super important. Even me, even though my timing was crappy and my cardio was crap, I was still able to pull the trigger on the techniques that I had, because it's my game plan. And the reason why, as soon as I hit the ground, because I knew I needed to finish it fast, why I hit the half guard and the side control position, the reason why I finished those arm locks so quick is because I knew exactly what I was doing. And that's my arm scoop position. And that's one of my go-to positions I've done for years now. And as soon as I hit, boom, I was immediately going for it. There was no indecisiveness. And if you're indecisive, a lot of times you what if, you think too much, and the tournaments are just the wrong place to do that. You need to go mostly on muscle memory. Now, again, you can always adjust if need be, but you need to have at least some plan. And so that's why it's so important to have a game plan, because if you watch a lot of the good competitors, you saw them use the same moves, same submission, same this, that, whatever, multiple times throughout the competition. And it wasn't by accident. It's because they were planning to use that stuff. Yeah.
And you're efficient. Like you said, he was already going before the even takedown was finished. He was already transitioning. And so you already have it's just you're a step ahead, number one, and you're efficient. So for you with your guard passing and your that position from top, it's not a lot of wasted energy or wasted movement, because you know exactly where you need to be and where your position needs to be for your arms to get the submission. So I think you're not going to do moves that you're not familiar with, because you're going to waste energy, waste effort, and you're not going to be as quick with them.
Yeah, and another thing that I noticed, so like for those that either watched my matches or see it, that first takedown that I did first takedown I attempted, if you watch, the guy was going close to the out of bounds. I turned it around and then shot him. And that was something that I saw like a lot of this week is people not knowing the rules. Like a great example was the way that people play out of bounds. I saw so many people shoot takedowns that landed right out of bounds.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, don't waste your energy. Because, and I say this because I had a competition back in 2015. I hit 3 good takedowns, but every one of those started out of bounds because the guy was skirting the out of bounds area. And so I lost all that energy, got 1 advantage for the 3 takedowns. And I mean, the guy was up by 2 points. Like I couldn't do anything.
Yeah. And
so I bring this up to your attention because there was, this is one of the things where I saw a lot of this weekend was people not understanding the out of bounds stuff.
Yeah.
If you're going to shoot takedowns, don't do them when the person has backed themselves up right to the out of bounds line. You can go ahead and just push them out and then reset. Right. And eventually, if they keep getting pushed out, they'll get called for stalling.
Right.
But like push them out of the out of bounds and then try to get back or circle and face them in the center. Right. Another one was the rules was just people just knowing what they could do. I saw like a guy who was up 12-0 and then he goes and goes for a knee bar against the person he's competing against. The only problem was knee bars weren't legal in his division. So he got DQ'd.
Was he like a blue or something?
I can't remember. But he got DQ'd for it. Got DQ'd for going the arm bar. I saw another guy that was winning a match and he had a guy and the guy jumped on him, jumped guard. And when he was letting him down, he didn't let him, he just kind of fell.
Yeah.
Instead of which I don't necessarily like that rule. I mean, you jumped up, dumb. Like if you get dropped, that's on you. But he let the guy drop, dude hit flop, and he got DQ'd. It was stupid. I was like, man, that sucks. But again, those are the rules. So you got to know how to play the rules. And this is not just an IBJJF thing. I know people love to poo-poo on the IBJJF. This is anything. Like I watched guys in the EBI where they would do almost nothing during their round. And then they would come alive in the overtime rounds. Right. Because they basically saved all their energy for the overtime rounds. The ADCC, I remember competing and being up against a tough wrestler. And I literally got to the spot where I could sweep the guy, had all my grips locked up. But I knew that we had 20 seconds left in the 0 points round. Right. It's like half and half. Yeah. So I sat there and waited. As soon as Chad was like, Chewy, there's points now. Boom, I pulled the guard or pulled the leg and went up for the sweep, got my 2 points. So it's important to know this stuff because, when you're going to compete, it's not always who the best jiu-jitsu practitioner is. It's not the person that knows the most jiu-jitsu. Sometimes it is, right? But a lot of times it's the person who knows how to play the rules the best and knows how to use their game plan the best within those rules and how that works. So that's an important thing to understand.
Yeah. And I think just competing, having some reps, being able to compete consistently. A lot of people haven't. I think they're starting to, competition starting to get regular again. But that's kind of the main thing, for me is just I like competing, but it's very nerve wracking and I'm very uncomfortable. I can say that I'm very uncomfortable. I'm thinking a lot. It's not like I'm not relaxed as I want to be. My nerves my main thing for me is my nerves get out of hand a little bit. So, and the way for me to get better is just to immerse myself in that environment and do it more.
Get your reps in.
Yep. And it's hard right now, but hopefully one day I might be a master 12 or something and I'll be competing more frequently if I can keep my body together. So
yeah, that's a neat thing about the IBJJF stuff. Like for instance, whenever I compete, I try to make it known like I'm competing at masters.
Yeah.
Because someone you'll see guys where I'm a world champion. Well, you're a world champion at master 4 purple belt.
Still important. No. A big deal.
It's not a big deal to anybody but you.
Okay.
That's what it is. If you want to talk about the world championships, that matters when you're talking about adults. Adult black belt, that's the division. Okay. I mean, that's the one that matters the most. The rest of us, we're all having fun. We're testing ourselves. We're challenging ourselves. But nobody's going to pay you for a seminar because you won Masters 2, purple belt, whatever. They're just not, it's and even purple belt to black belt, nobody, it really doesn't matter until you become a black belt. It matters to you and it matters for your experience and your overall enjoyment of jiu-jitsu. But in the end, once you get to black belt, you can't say, hey, by the way, I'm a world champion. Oh, you won a world champion black belt? Oh, no, I won this at blue belt. No, it doesn't matter anymore as much. It's thinking about you get to the it's like going to college or it's like going to the NFL. And you're like, man, I was the starting quarterback. Like, oh, for the NFL team? No, for high school. Like it's kind of irrelevant at that point. It's still cool to know, and it's cool to have those little experiences. But in the end, like wherever you're at, as you progress and become more and more, it matters. Like, what are you doing right now? You know? But again, it's not to poo-poo on masters people. It's not that at all. I'm just saying it's like at the end of the day, like, I mean, I'm out there having fun. I'm testing myself, and it's a great test. I love it. I really do enjoy it. It's fun. And but at the end, it's like I'm not in the adult division.
Right.
So, you know, and that's another thing maybe to help people out. Like, don't put too much pressure on yourself, because again, like, so if you're like, unless you're like the adult black belt competitors, like, I mean, we're all pushing ourselves and trying, and there's nothing wrong with putting pressure on yourself. But again, that's the best. Everything else is either leading up to that or just, you know, is what it is.
So what do you think, like, as far as like these fight to wins or these, who's number one?
They're great.
Right? But you've got guys that are purple belts, and it's
and
Nogi and everybody. So like those are pretty big deals.
Well, those are different situations. I'm talking about a tournament,
right?
Now, when you're doing like a super fight, that sort of thing.
Well, they did tournament.
Well, no, but I'm talking about like where you're doing a tournament based upon rank. Like when you're doing like a who's number one, it's basically there's no adjustment for age brackets or belts. It's basically like, let's take some badass dudes, badass women, and let's make tournaments out of it. Let's put them together, see who wins. Right. And that's a different situation, because then you like, there's nothing given towards belts or anything. Right. It's just who's better. Yeah. Right. It's just who's better at that, you know? And so I just say that, you know, so that's a different situation. Yeah. But what I'm talking about, like tournaments where you're getting these categories, right? Like, because, you know, think it's like, I don't know how many categories there are, but there's 40 world champions. Well, no, there's one. To me, there's the ones in the adult black belt, and the rest of us are kind of like there's some little asterisks. Yeah, you know, we're the Masters world champion. Yeah, you know, we're the best dude that was like 30 whatever to 50. You know, but again, I don't mind it. I just think it's because I enjoy enjoy competing. Right, I really enjoy it, and so I'm glad that Jiu-Jitsu does, like, these tournaments do give people options for that. Because I mean, think about it. Like, you don't have a lot of sports where you can say, you know what, I'm 40 years old. I want to go compete. I'm 35. You know, like, they don't have options for you. It's like, sorry, you're too old. But Jiu-Jitsu, it's like, hey, no, we've got a bunch of these older gamers. Like, you know, by gamers, I mean people that are just tough. People get after it. Yeah. We've got a bunch of these gamers, and they're a little bit older too. They want to get after it with you. Let's throw you guys in a division. I think that's super cool. I think that's one of the reasons why I was talking to, there were a lot of wrestlers at the competition. And one of the reasons why I think you're starting to get a lot more wrestlers in Jiu-Jitsu, because I've talked to people, and this is kind of the same story. One, in wrestling, if anybody has ever done a wrestling practice, it sucks. Like, it's not fun. It's hard. Like, it's really hard. Yeah. Like very few jiu-jitsu practices will ever come close to like a really high level wrestling practice. It's just a different animal. Even the sport is different, the way the muscles are being used. I mean, you're constantly shooting for takedowns. Everything's explosive. It's a tough animal. It's like just constant overtraining. So it sucks. So it's not very fun. And then on top of that, you don't casually train wrestling. Yeah, you don't get into wrestling. You know, man, I'm 35 years old. I'm looking to get active again. Let me go wrestle, right? Nobody does that. You know, it's not a thing. You know, it's like, I mean, maybe it is somewhere, but not in most places. So, but jiu-jitsu, it's like, I see this all the time. And a lot of the wrestlers will say, man, you know, I was done wrestling and I wanted to do something else. Jiu-jitsu looked cool. Let me try that out. Man, this is kind of fun. It's like grappling, but it's not nearly as intense where we're beating the crap out of each other every single rip. And then on top of that, I think some of them have also watched like Nicky Rod and some of those guys. Like, man, Nicky Rod was a decent wrestler. He wasn't like the absolute best, right? So if he's doing this well, man, what could I do? You know, kind of gets them thinking. So you start to see all these wrestlers come into the mix.
Yeah, you know? And I think that, you know, you're starting to see jiu-jitsu as a way that you know, there's getting to be more money there. So like before, if you're a wrestler, it's like the only place you can really go is MMA. But you can actually, you know, you could probably make a living if you're a pretty decent wrestler, and you can, you know, develop your jiu-jitsu. You can probably you could make a living or supplement your life by training jiu-jitsu. So that was not even, you know, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, or even, I don't know, 5 years ago. I don't think it was really a thing, but now it's becoming
very few people knew
more of a thing. Like, it's a spectator.
It's always been an option. People just didn't know how to do it. It wasn't as widely available. It wasn't widely known, but with more and more people, getting into jiu-jitsu, that's what's making that happen, because there's more money's coming into the sport because you got more eyeballs, more people are interested.
Yeah, they were saying ADCC's like registrations like more than doubled. I think
that's great.
It's crazy. It's gonna be huge. They have to like change the venue, I think, for the trials.
Oh, for the trials, cool.
Yeah, so it's awesome because by way of having,
I wonder if they're gonna make that like a 2-day tournament.
I think it is,
because you're gonna, dude. It's like,
I think it's 2 days, but
because
like,
I remember competing 6 matches in a day.
Oh God,
bro, I was beat up.
6 matches. That's insane.
Because you're talking about like, I mean, I woke up the next morning, I was battered, man. Like, because I had some battles in that tournament, you know. So,
it's gonna be fun. Like, there's or do you know about ADCC what you're gonna do?
I'm not competing.
You're not competing.
Dude, I don't. I'm still getting back to normal, so it sucks.
Yeah, it's not far off. It's like when is it?
It's early November.
Okay, yeah, that's what
I'm gonna get Brandon up there.
Yeah,
so he can get a feel for it. I want him to experience it because I feel like whenever you like, I think this is a really wise thing to do for people. If there's something you're shooting for, tournament or skill wise, go expose yourself to it as early as possible. Whether like you go to a competition, you want to win something, go to the competition and see what it's like. See what that feels like. You might get crushed, but I'll see what's important. And then if it's like maybe get as good as someone, maybe there's someone that you think is really, really good, go train with them. Experience what that's like. And the reason being is because I feel like when you can see it, when you can touch it, when it becomes real and you understand what it is, it becomes much easier to aspire towards.
Yeah.
Right. So for instance, if you want to do like a big level competition, if you go feel the level that's there, you can say, okay, this is what I'm shooting for. If you go roll with someone that's really, really good, you can roll with them and say, okay, this is what I'm shooting for. Here's how they train. Here's how they roll. Everything else, you can absorb some of that intuitively. And I think it's a useful thing. And so even when I went to the ADCC trials, I was like, oh, okay, so this is what I need to kind of do with some of these guys, and here's what they're training for.
Yeah.
So it's a useful thing.
Any trends besides like leg locks? I mean, obviously leg locks were legal
this weekend.
Yeah, last weekend. Anything you saw?
Leg locks, tons of wrestling.
The
wrestling. One of the things I think that for all jiu-jitsu practitioners, because it's going to be interesting, right? So if all these wrestlers are coming into jiu-jitsu as purple belts and blue belts and everything else, they're going to change what's happening in the black belt level in a few years, right? Just like it is with all the other ones, right? And so one of the things I would say to a lot of jiu-jitsu practitioners is you either need to be working your takedowns and working your wrestling, or you need to understand how your jiu-jitsu works against wrestling, and you need to roll with some wrestlers. So that means you got to like suck it up, and you got to go against the guys that are tough, have a good base, or explosive, all that kind of stuff, that kind of thing. Because a lot of people don't always want to roll with the wrestlers because, man, wrestlers are tough. God, it sucks to roll with them, whatever, or they don't want to work takedowns because takedowns are exhausting and sometimes they hurt a little bit. But you gotta do one or the other, because otherwise, if you do decide to compete, or even if you decide to do a good roll in, you're just going to be a sitting duck for those kind of speed.
Yeah, it's definitely like you've seen these, like it's just a wave of wrestlers, more or less. Because you said like a lot of the people that Brandon went against were wrestlers, pretty much every single one. So and they did really well. They're used to competition. They're used to a high pace, like they're grinders. It's
and they're going to learn how to use their jiu-jitsu, just like Nicky Rod, right? So Nicky Rod is like, he's gotten pretty good at jiu-jitsu. Like, I mean, like he knows what he's doing. He's not just like a wrestler that doesn't know anything. Like he definitely knows how to play jiu-jitsu. And when you look at Pixley, immediately shooting for darces and guillotines and stuff like that. And there was this other purple belt. This was from one of Richie Martinez's dudes from 10th Planet. Guy was a good wrestler, beautiful wrestling, and was chaining it together almost seamlessly with his jiu-jitsu. So like you'd see him do a beautiful takedown and he's immediately scrambling to the back. Like, I mean, he looked good. I told Rich, dude, he freaking looks great, because he was going right in front of us at one point. And I was like, dude, I was telling Brandon, I was like, that's kind of what you're looking for, is to basically your grappling becomes seamless. Yeah. It's not like you're in wrestling mode and then jiu-jitsu mode. It's like, there is no hiccups. There's no transition. It's like when you watch like George St. Pierre fight MMA, he was so good at transitioning from these different styles and doing so without seemingly like a hiccup, like where I remember back in the day, you would notice some guys where I forgot the guy's name. He's a fighter. He would box orthodox, but shoot right-footed. Okay. So you knew when he was going to go for the takedown because he would change his stance. Yeah. But then when he was going to box you, he was going to be in the other stance. So he was he was literally going from boxing mode to wrestling mode. Yeah. And so like, there you don't see that as much in MMA anymore, and then with jiu-jitsu, these wrestlers at the lower levels right now, they're just wrestlers. But eventually those guys are going to learn jiu-jitsu and they're going to become some nasty grapplers. And there was another really good Brandon pointed him out to me, another really good college wrestler that pulled guard and came up for a sweep. So he pulled guard and then got the sweep, but then basically wrestled up for the sweep. So again, just another way to meld it into the grappling rather than just, being a bruising wrestler that's going forward. So I think it's something that's really important for people to become acquainted with, and then even people that were going up against Brandon who maybe weren't the biggest people, you have to know how to play against wrestlers. And they had the very particular way to do it. And there was one guy he went against who was a very tough grappler, but all of his sweeps were like wrestle up sweeps, where basically you'd come up and try to wrestle the person once you get up. And Brandon outweighed him by like 50 pounds. And he's a much better wrestler than him. So it's like, it's not going to happen. You have to have other options. And so you learn that from, getting your time in with those types of guys who you can't out wrestle, and you got to find other options.
What do you think? Like, if you had to say, if somebody's going up against a wrestler, what kind of strategy do you recommend?
Depends on the wrestler. Depends on what they do. I think always a good bet is if you can get up under their hips. Either with half guard, butterfly guard, half butterfly, things like that, where you get up under their hips. Like almost if you think about it, how people shoot under for the leg attacks, things like that. Those, though, because you think about the wrestler base, it's hard to take them side to side and stuff like that. Like sweeping them can be really difficult. Trying to wrestle can be difficult. So you've got to get under that base. You've got to basically undermine their foundation. Once you do that, a lot of times you can get them to move a little bit. And you can find options. Typically, if I'm going up against a wrestler, that's a lot of times what I'm thinking about trying to do.
Yeah. Again, they have such heavy hips, and they're good at shit like JT Torres, for example, is like so good at like almost like shifting his hips, like just to keep his weight perfectly aligned with where you're trying to, you couldn't get him. It's hard. Like when he moves around, it's hard to get him off balance because he's kind of keeping you kind of under his center the whole time. So,
right.
Yeah. What else you got, you?
The last thing, it would be just simply that you've got to learn how to play 2 game plans. You got to be able to play top and a bottom. So I saw several matches where you saw guys where either you'd get those ugly wrestling matches, and it's like, I wish one of you guys knew how to play bottom better. Or sometimes you'd see someone who was a dominant top player get out wrestled, get put on their back, and they were done. Like, you got to learn how to play both. Like you can't be just, I'm a top player. Top player might be your A game, but you got to be able to play a little bit bottom, and vice versa. And you see this happen more at the extremes of the weights. So for instance, in the bigger divisions, almost nobody, especially the purple belt and under, you get to brown, black belt, big guys will play a little bit more guard. But up at the upper divisions at ultra heavy, big guys don't want to play the guard. They don't want to be on their back because it's when they train in the gym, it's their worst position. It's the position they struggle with the most. So it's the position that does not come the most naturally, all that stuff. So they don't tend to want to be on their back. And if they roll with someone that's the same size as them in the gym, they probably get smashed doing so. So they never take the time to learn it. Likewise, the other flip it around, little dudes like the rooster weights. I mean, it's like, who's going to pull first?
Yeah.
I mean, they'll literally just go out there and touch each other's finger and sit on their butt. And so they don't want to be on top very often, or they don't like to go for takedowns. And it's because in the gym, they're the smallest person in the gym. So doing takedowns usually gets them messed up, and their top game, they probably get bucked off. But a lot of times, if you get a hold of like a small person who's very flexible, their guard can be just terribly hard to pass.
Sure.
So they develop this really good guard retention, and they know how to play that game. And so that becomes their best stuff. And so you sometimes have to switch it out and say, look, you need to learn how to do takedowns. You got to learn how to pass hard. And for the big guy, look, I don't care that you don't want to play on your back. You got to learn how to play off your back just in case. Give yourself other options. It's very, very important. So I think it's one of the important things. You need to have like an A game and a B game, meaning you need a top game and a bottom game. Maybe we should call it the T game and the B game. But like, you need to have a top and a bottom game. Otherwise, you are going to find yourself in a bad situation. I remember a great example of this was years ago at the Arnold tournament. These 2 purple belts, this is like 2004. These 2 purple belts made it in the finals. Really tough. Again, this is 2004, by the way. Purple belts were like the black belts of the time period.
Yeah.
It would be like the same thing as watching 2 black belts compete, because black belts were just so rare back then. But they're competing against each other. And I remember the guard player, the whole tournament, he'd been playing guard. Very good dude. And then he was like real slick. And then the other guy, big bruising wrestler, college wrestler, top game whole way through. They meet in the finals, guard pulls, starts playing, and then out of nowhere, he comes up for a single leg, gets a takedown. I think it took the guy by surprise. afterwards the wrestler was just on his back and he was cooked. He didn't know what to do on his back. He was just done. And so it's like, look, you should have spent a little time doing that, because you got to learn that position too. It's all jiu-jitsu. You can't, you want to be a well-rounded grappler. You want to have your specific stuff that you're good with, but you want to be able to play everywhere. You don't want to be completely void of any skill from one major position or the next, just because it just didn't come easy to you. That's very short-sighted thinking. And but you see that sometimes. You see guys where they lack any skill from one position because they spend so much time in the other one.
Yeah. And you're probably, obviously as you get brown and black belts, you'll see more of a more well-rounded game. They have more layers, obviously, but
you tend to see more people, like, especially in the different weights, you tend to see more people play a varied game. I think it's because, like, as a purple belt, by purple belt, you probably have a really tight, specialized area that you're really good with.
Yeah.
And you start to learn how to play other stuff, because it's almost like, it's almost relaxing to have a position that is like really, really good.
Yeah.
If you're a purple belt and you've got like a black belt, guard game, it's very comforting to know that, because then it's like, okay, if anything happens, I can always get back to guard.
Yeah.
So then you can start playing around a little bit more. It's just like there's momentum to winning, because as you win stuff more and it loses its novelty, like where it's like, it's not such a rare thing, you're like, I win all the time. There's a beautiful thing, because then it becomes easier, because you're a winner. So therefore you can step on the mat and you're a winner regardless. If you lose this match, it doesn't matter. I've won a lot more. That's the thing I noticed, is as I won more, I cared less about winning, because I've won a lot.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, if I win, great. If I don't, whatever happens, because I've already won a lot. So therefore it's very relaxing and allows me to play better. And so I think the same thing happens in the game, where, as you start to get really good at something, there's no longer this like neediness from you to where like, I have to win today. It's like, look, I'm really good. I could finish this guy with this triangle that I have if I wanted to, like that. But you know what? I need to get better here. If he submits me, whatever, I made that decision. It allows you to kind of just relax a little bit. Whereas, when you're a white belt, you're just trying to survive. Blue belt, you're trying to figure stuff out. I think it changes a little bit as you get better and better.
Yeah. Well, Chewy, we did it. We'll do a little Q&A.
All right,
guys. What do you say? Guys, send us some questions. We're going to do a little Q&A. We'll go to the top and see if there's anything that we want to touch on. So send some questions.
Taruku, does CBD actually work? It does for me. It does for a lot of people. But that said, I always say this, the endocannabinoid system is very different from person to person. So it might work for you. It might not. I don't know. That's why I always tell people to try it out. But I like it.
All right, here's another one. Same thing. Turco has another one. What's your opinion on using grappling socks for BJJ?
I don't even know what grappling socks are.
I've seen people wear socks, but I don't know. I guess maybe they have grippers. I don't know. Like, I guess maybe the only reason I would think that it might be a good idea to wear grappling socks is if you have like some open sores or something you're trying to cover up. If I would tape.
If I had something wrong with my feet, I would just wear wrestling shoes.
But I have no idea,
because I don't know what grappling socks are. So the answer is I don't know. Maybe they're great, but I don't wear them.
Yeah,
I'm not a grappling socks guy.
This. See, I don't know. This today's when men lost with honor. So what?
What's that?
I think he's saying
I was 35% tough seeing Chewy like this.
I guess he's saying maybe you're making it wasn't excuses, bro. He's just telling. He's just.
Hold on a second. I missed the days when men lost honor. Oh, I mean, I lost with. I mean, I don't know. I'm letting people know. I let people know those things, not to make excuses, because my opponent beat me. I choose to share those things so that this way, if someone is like not having the perfect training camp, or because this has happened, get little injuries and things like that, and everything's not perfect, that they just go do it anyway. Because a lot of times what happens is, if something doesn't happen perfectly, a lot of times people get in their own heads big time, and they'll think like, oh man, I missed this day of training, or this thing happened, or whatever. And then they kind of, they lose confidence. And so the thing is, I'm saying, look, just sometimes go out there and do it. And even if you're not 100%, big deal. Saying the honor thing with excuses, that's you projecting on me. So that's on you, not me.
Yeah. All right. Let me see if there's anything else. What is this one? Something about water. I don't know. So this one is, how can we avoid thinking about previous sparring sessions before sleep? Can't stop thinking about BJJ. So maybe like just, are you talking about a good or bad?
Well, good or bad nonetheless. So the thing that works for me to like, things get on my mind too, right? So like I'm guilty of it as well. So first off, there's certain types of things like content wise and reading wise that I do not go anywhere near because of the fact that it'll keep me up. So for instance, I don't read certain types of books or watch certain types of videos or anything close to bedtime because it'll literally keep me up, or I'll wake up at like 4 a.m. and I can't go back to sleep because my mind's racing. So again, if you're sitting up watching jiu-jitsu videos after training or whatever, turn that stuff off because it's probably stimulating you. Try to find something like this is what helps me. Find something reading or listening wise, maybe like audiobooks. I like listening to audiobooks a lot of times, and I like just listening to them because it gets my mind to focus on what the audiobook is saying or what the thought is from the particular book, and it gets me to relax. And whatever I was thinking about kind of gets out of my mind, and then I kind of doze off and go to bed. Again, that's different for everybody. I've been listening to a little bit of fiction at nighttime in an audiobook, and that my mind will be racing, whatever, of thinking about stuff. And then I start thinking about the story that's going on in the book, and all of a sudden I'm out. And then, giving yourself some time to do that. So I would just be mindful. Like one of my friends he's a physician, he was talking about sleep hygiene. Like what do you do to facilitate good sleep at the end of the night? Like, do you wind down? Do you do things that are relaxing to you, that to facilitate good, relaxing thoughts? What do you do to make these things happen? You don't want to come like straight from doing something and then your mind's still racing and just like lay down in bed. Like you want to try to facilitate a relaxing situation. And you can do that. Like I've also done it with stretching in the past, where I'll stretch for a little bit and listen to some like really calming, like meditation style music and just sort of bring myself down before I hop into bed. But the story stuff seems to help me. It basically takes my mind from whatever I'm thinking about and then takes it over into another area. So I would be mindful of what you're listening to or what you're doing or watching before sleep, and then trying to find stuff that kind of relaxes you and get your mind off of it.
I have my problem with thinking about a tough, like if I had a bad rolling session or something that sticks out of my mind, somebody got the better of me. So I'm a ruminator. So I'm always constantly kind of just like, I'm replaying in my head. And so I think some things that have helped me is just kind of like looking at what I did and what I can do differently. Like, did I make any mistakes? What did this person do well? And maybe even taking some notes, but even mental notes. A lot of times I'll do that. I try to get it out of my head by the time I get home. I have about a 40-minute drive. So while I'm driving, I sometimes will listen to music or audiobook or what have you, but sometimes I'm trying to break down what happened and if there's anything I can modify and change. And like you said, yeah, like I've been listening to autobiographies actually.
Okay.
I've been listening to the Steve Jobs one.
That's a good is the one by Walter Isaacson?
I think it's like a really super long.
That's a good one. It's a real.
So I'm listening to that one right now, and my wife was like, "How long is that book?"
Yeah,
I was like 24 hours.
Yeah, it's a long one. I just finished listening to Dune.
Okay,
because they're getting ready to do the movie. So
okay.
I was listening to that one on audiobook, and
yeah,
it was 20 hours.
Wow,
but it was really good. Like towards the end of it, dude, I was like trying to squeeze in bits and pieces. I'm like, I want to listen to this some more, you know. So it was really good. If you get a good narrator and a good story, so good.
You told me about that Steve Jobs book, so I was just curious, and I was like,
it's an interesting one. It's long. Like I said, I read that one. That sucker's like that.
Yeah. Let's see. We got something, and I don't think we have. Have you ever done commentary before, Chewy? This is from. He says, I'm commentating on my second ever jiu-jitsu event in Myrtle Beach tomorrow. Have either of you done commentating? Any advice?
I have not done commentary. I've been offered. Like I got offered a gig to do one time, but I just don't have the time. So I was like, I felt bad because I wanted to do it because it sounded like a lot of fun.
It does.
But then I was like, bro, I just don't have the time, and I'm not going to be able to like dedicate a lot of time to it.
Yeah.
I like listening to Sean Williams. He does some really good jiu-jitsu commentary.
Yeah.
When he does those because he knows what he's looking at. And he's very like he explains it pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, so like Brandon McCatherine's a great one. Like Brandon he does some combat jiu-jitsu. He's got a great I mean, like what he said he does is he studies a lot. Like he studies the positions and kind of watches film. And somebody that's kind of outside the box who's who commentates a lot of different stuff is Robin Black, and we've had him on the podcast a couple times, and he's very unique in his thought process. So I don't know, maybe like,
if I had to think about something I could do, like if I was, I mean, granted you're doing it tomorrow, so it's a little too late, but like if he's commentating something you want to do, I'd probably sit down and like watch matches and then commentate by myself.
Yeah.
Just get used to like pick matches, and because you're going to have to be quick and explain things, and then sort of like just like watch them, and then basically get reps in and practice like commentating the matches that you're watching with nobody being there, just so that you can get good at like explaining stuff on the fly. I know that as a coach teaching, like you have to get really good about, as you're moving around in space, grabbing stuff, you're then explaining to people what you're doing. And there's definitely a skill to doing that. Because I remember when I would start teaching when I was younger, I was really slow to like explain what I was doing. And as I got better, I mean, I can literally start to do things with my body. And it's like, as I'm doing them, I can explain
Talk through them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Chewy, maybe this is a good one. This is from Adrian, and they ask, it competed for the first time last week. How do you get competition intensity into your regular rolls?
So I think it starts, Adrian, with the fact that you competed, because it's, again, just like I was talking about before, you need to go do it so you can feel it. It's important to actually feel what a competition roll is like, because until you felt it, you haven't felt it, because competition rolls it's a different animal. And so I think now that you've felt it, you can then start to push the pace a little bit more in the gym. And then you can even talk to your coach and ask them if they're going to do any competition style rolling, or try to find the people in your gym that are gamers like you that want to push it, and, roll with those people. Cause different people in the gym are going to roll differently. Like if I go to the gym, sometimes like I might have a couple rolls with people that roll lighter, or maybe they're a little bit older, so we go a little slower. And then I might roll a couple rounds with young guys that want to really push it, and we'll go harder. But I think the fact that you did a tournament match will allow you to understand what that intensity feels like. And then you can try to find that when you're rolling, as you're trying to be aggressive towards your techniques and things like that. But if you want to get that intensity, I would definitely find people that are willing to want to match that intensity and just roll with it.
Yeah. And I think like one thing that we've done that's been super helpful is like we had mock tournaments at the gym. Like you're like, all right, today we're going to be doing, I'll line you guys up. We're going to do kind of tournament format. We're actually going to have a ref. You're going to have people, like you're going to have a couple people coaching you. You try to replicate the environment. Right. And I think that's something kind of cool. Aladdin said that he talked to us about a year ago about starting jiu-jitsu. We gave him some good advice on lifting. He just wanted to say and lifting and doing jiu-jitsu. He wanted to say thank you.
Nice.
Appreciate you, Aladdin. So here's a good one. So Shelly says, I'm a white belt beginner. I'm concerned that I can't add to anyone else's game, as I'm a 46-year-old female. There's all guys in my gym. What advice do you have?
You're a white belt. You're not supposed to add anything to anybody's game. You're there to train. Like, there's this interesting thing that I've noticed with a lot of different people. They'll, like, sometimes, like when people, like say women, come into the gym and they're training with a bunch of big burly guys, or you'll have guys that are like overweight and they can't roll full speed, or insert whatever that difficulty is. They'll think like somehow they're holding people back, or they're not adding something to their gym, or whatever. Like the reality is, you're a white belt and you're there for your own gain. So right now your job is not to add anything else to anybody else's game. It's to get better yourself. As you get better, you can then make other people better. That's how that works, right? Like a white belt, when he shows up the first day, let's say he's like the same as the rest of the guys as far as physical shape. So what? He's not going to add anything to the gym yet. First, he needs to train for a while. And then as he gets better, he will add to the gym by and large by his skill level. And so for you, don't worry so much about what you're adding to the gym or whatever. You're there to just train yourself and get better. And by doing so, you will help the gym around you. And I wouldn't get too focused on that, and as far as the guys, I mean, every gym's different, but I've got plenty of women that I roll with in the gym, and who, like, it just is what it is. I'm a 210-pound man. Some of these women are 140 pounds, 130 pounds. Like, they're much smaller than me. I can't use my full weight or my full strength. But we exchange technique and we roll a little bit. It's fun, So again, it's just different for everybody. There's different types of rolls. And so jiu-jitsu gyms are very interesting in the fact that there's this wide array of types of people that come into the gym. A lot of times it's not just one person. And so you're contributing to that gym. You're adding something to it by being there. And as you're there, what'll probably end up happening is, if you continue to get better, Shelly, you'll find that women will come in there eventually and they'll say, oh, well, look at her. Look, Shelly's pretty good. Shelly's a woman like me. And all of a sudden you'll find that more women stick around because of that. And you'll have more women and more men to train with. I know that happened with us at the gym, as we had more women that were good and that stuck around. More women sort of clung to them and said, okay, well, I can model after you because you're like me. Just like if a guy comes into the gym, if the 130-pound man comes into the gym, he'll search and say, oh, there's another 130-pound man like me. I can use them as a model to get better. And so that's a short idea, just focus on yourself. And by doing that, you'll make everybody around you, you'll contribute to your gym, you'll improve it.
Yeah. And I think just be a good training partner as far as like try to keep your training partner safe. Try not to be spazzy, it's hard as a white belt, but just try to communicate and keep your training partner safe. Be someone like there's white belts that we have at the gym. They're spazzes and you don't want to roll with them. You'd rather roll with like a high level, brown or black belt that may be bigger than you and better than you. It doesn't matter because there's more controlled roll. So you'll develop that as you go, but just be try to be as controlled and just kind of be safe. Try not to spaz as much. And I think that could be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for sure is something.
Yeah. See, Gray just said he's a 41-year-old beginner, small, right? So he said, he's like, I get partnered with big guys. I feel bad for him. Don't feel bad for him. We're just all training. The thing is like, we're all in this together. It's like when we're training together, like none of us get better by not having training partners, right? It's just the way it is. So you don't have to feel bad about who you are, right, or the way that nature built you, right? Like, it's not like you can say, man, I wish I could change, the way, like you can't change your structure, your body, your physical bone frame. You can build some muscles and stuff like that, but you can't change your structure. If you're a smaller person, you're just gonna be a smaller person. That's okay. It's not like, it's not like you come into the gym and it's like, all right, you've got to be this tall and weigh this much to train here. Everybody's adding and contributing to it. So I think just a lot of times people become self-conscious about things that no one else cares about. I don't know if you guys have ever had this experience before where like you notice something on yourself that bothers you, something that bothers you about yourself, right? Physically. And you notice it. You look in the mirror, you see it, whatever, but then no one else ever sees it. They don't care. Kind of like that. Like you might be self-conscious about your size and your weight or whatever, but probably most people don't really care. It's not that big of a deal to them.
All right, let's do how about this one? Think about that one, Chewy. Should I focus on getting good at one takedown or vary it up? I feel like a fish out of water when standing.
Thanks from Idaho.
Bodie's is
man. You want to, when you have takedowns, and this is true with any techniques, you want to like play around with a lot of them, and you want to constantly bring in new stuff. But when you're talking about like making your game, like you want to start with one thing. One technique at first, and then you can build from that. But you want to be taking stuff in on all the time. So I would say get better with whatever takedown is you're best with, but constantly bring in new stuff because that's how you'll find new stuff to chain together with that one. Because you start with one, and then all of a sudden you chain it together with other stuff. So it might be that one takedown you begin with that's your best, but then all of a sudden you add to it.
Mm-hmm. I've been reading Grit. You read Grit by Angela Duckworth. Mm-hmm. She talks about deliberate practice. Mm-hmm. And like some of these people are really, these athletes or these people that are specialists in their field, mm-hmm. deliberate practice. So like if you're just going in, you're just trying to do a bunch of different takedowns, you're never going to develop really well in any of them. So if you find one thing to focus on, you give yourself like a tangible goal, or like maybe I want to do this entry or mm-hmm. get, a arm drag, or at least get the arm drag today. Maybe I won't hit a takedown, but I'm just working on arm drag and standing, those type of things. Like, so just find something deliberate you can focus on and see if maybe you can hit 3 arm drags, and then you can mm-hmm. work on, from there, other stuff. So it just kind of find something deliberate. I think that's some way for skill acquisition that they found has been helpful.
Yeah. The research. So if you guys are on my email list, I talked about this today, which was, there was a famous battle that was going on in ancient history between, Julius Caesar and Pompey the Great. And the story goes, if it's true, that once Caesar's troops landed, he burned the boats.
Okay.
So he burned all the boats behind him. So they just crossed the sea, burned the boats. He told them, you're either going to die or you're going to dine in the enemy's tents. Your choice. Burn the boats. He didn't give him a choice. They had one option to go forward. And so you kind of have to do that, because what ends up happening a lot of times with people in jiu-jitsu, whenever they get ready to use a new technique, you're inevitably going to get, air quotes here, worse, because you're using something that's new to your game. It's not going to be as easy. It's going to be tough. So you get worse and your game drops for a little bit. Now, short-sighted thinking would then say, oh no, I'm losing. And then you want to go back to using your safe techniques, the ones that you're best with. Air quote, that would be your boats. right? And get back on the boat. This isn't going to work. It's scary. But by not giving yourself the option to just go back to whatever's easiest for you and forcing yourself to use those techniques, you then force yourself to actually try them out and get better. And so, one of those things where with those techniques that you're trying to use, you need to restrict yourself to using them for a while and give it some time, because it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time to develop the muscle memory. But again, that's the idea. You want to make sure that you restrict yourself to the techniques that you're trying to improve. It's in Timothy Ortel said, just don't do that when marching to Moscow. This is true. Russia has a really good track record with like slowing down invasions with that, like Napoleon and actually you had was it Napoleon, Hitler, and then I think the first one was it Charles the 15th or whatever from Sweden. I forgot his name. So the Swedish Empire for a while was like, they were like really, like during the 1700s, they were like badass.
Really?
Because he was I think that they were one of the first people that like they standardized all their ammunitions with the balls and stuff.
Okay.
And so they had a really good army. And I think it was like maybe Charles XI, Charles the 15th or something. And he basically took a really relatively small, but really well-trained army. And he basically defeated several different European powers and was going through into Russia. And then the same thing happened, which has happened, for hundreds of years, which is you just got bogged down in the winter, and then that was it.
It's cold. It's cold. Frigid.
One of you guys might know whether it was Charles the 15th or whatever.
Chewy, let's answer this one real fast. Look at that picture. It's a great picture.
Yeah, Levi Page.
So he says, I get exhausted trying to hold people in my guard. Should I open it up to rest, switch guards if my submission sweeps aren't working?
That's a hard one to answer, because it's like, well, what are you getting exhausted from, your legs or whatever? I think that the biggest thing would be learning how to like be very good at breaking posture. Because if you're breaking posture really well, they shouldn't be able to simply just pop up and put all kinds of pressure on you. You can kind of control them a little bit. So I think the posture would be the thing to work towards.
I don't know if I understand this question.
Which one?
This one. At what belt is it unacceptable to not play top and bottom, or does not influence belts?
I don't know. I think you need to be able to play top and bottom.
Well, here's the thing. Like, as far as
unacceptable to not, I don't know what that means.
I'm not sure. Well, I think like if you're somebody that has a really, really good, maybe a good bottom game, a really good top game, to be, in your opinion, we've talked about this, to get a black belt under you expect them to have a decent or pretty good ability to perform all those things. Be on bottom, play off bottom, pass off top. So, that's according to you, but I think you got to have both. I think you're just limiting yourself.
Well, it's like, why would you not be able to play both? Like jiu-jitsu, why not be able to play both?
I think you have to if you want to be better.
I'm just saying, not even if you want to be better. Why would you want to limit yourself? Why would you want to? You purposely be taking weapons away from yourself. So there's weapons that you could be good with that you don't know. It would purposely being like if you were a kid, would you like throw away half your toys? Of course not. Like, I want a full toy box.
Yeah.
Same thing.
All right, Chew. This is an interesting one. What do you think about that? Steven Delgado. So,
Steven, if your gym is not doing leg locks, I would talk to the coach and ask him if it's possible to do leg locks. Say, hey, coach, I'd love to do some leg locks. Is that a possibility in the future? And then, if maybe he says no, well, then you could always check out some of the other gyms in your area and see if they do leg locks. I've had several people come to my gym in part because they got to do things like leg locks. So again, if you're a paying member and you're a student, there's nothing wrong with you coming up to your coach and saying, hey, coach, I would love to learn some of this stuff. It's everywhere. It's all over the place. Would you teach me some of this stuff? I'd love to learn it. So I think that's a reasonable way to do it, is just come up to them and ask, say, hey, because a lot of times your coaches might be in their sort of routine. And unless they get some feedback from you guys as the students, they may not know to change things. But then if all of a sudden a bunch of you guys come up and say, hey, coach, would love to do some leg locks. Is that possible? It gets them to go, guess we need to work on some leg locks then, because that's what my students want to learn. And it wouldn't be a bad thing for them to learn them. So maybe that kind of thing. And then again, if he's very resistant towards that idea, then potentially maybe check out some of the other gyms and see if there are gyms that play with leg locks in your area that you would maybe want to train at.
Okay. This is a very broad question.
Okay.
Let's maybe just do a couple of tips. How do I get in shape as a white belt?
Oh.
So that's a right.
So, okay, check us out. Here's the way I look at it. You have layers to this thing, right? First thing is rolling. Rolling is the most important layer. You got to roll. That's number one. You get better for jiu-jitsu shape by rolling. Second, if your rolling is good and you're rolling, diet needs to be good. Trust me, if you start eating a decent diet, you will feel much better. Now, I'm not going to be on the bandwagon of saying you need to eat this way or that way. All I'm saying is eat foods that you have to prepare from like whole ingredients, right? Whether that means you want to go keto or like have like a lot of carbohydrates like me or whatever, that's up to you. But eat a decent diet, make a big difference. Drink lots of water too. Next, you got the diet, you got the rolling. Now we're looking at things like stuff you can do off the mat. Next thing I think to throw into the mix is strength training. Strength training is very important. I know people will fight me on this because they'll picture a giant bodybuilder who has massive amounts of hypertrophy, but typically a stronger muscle doesn't exhaust as fast. You can think about this as people lifting weights. If you can do, say, like pull-ups with, 45 pounds of weight hanging under you for 15 reps, your body weight's going to be even easier, right? And you're going to be those muscles are going to have a little bit more endurance to them. Same thing for your rolling. As those muscles are being used with strength training and they're stronger, they don't putter out as fast. As long as you're rolling at the same time and learning how to use that strength properly. And the last thing would be, and this is just, I'm keeping this simple for you. I could go, dude, I'm telling you right now, because I did a video recently where I was talking about how to it was actually on the subject about getting better cardio as a white belt. And, everybody wants this magical secret, and there really is no magical secret. Now, there's all kinds of weird training modalities that you can implement, but it's the basics, man. It's the fundamentals. Like train your jiu-jitsu, eat a decent diet, lift some weights. And then for me, one of the things that's always been helpful if I'm trying to get in good shape is steady state cardio. That means like going for a jog, going for a run, doing some hill trail runs, getting on your bike and riding. It may not be the most fun thing. And some people will say HIIT training. I'm not a big fan of HIIT training. Personally, I think it's a little bit too much from the system if you're trying to roll, and especially if rolling is still difficult to you, which I imagine is as a white belt. I think it's too much high intensity training. Whereas if you can do a moderate intensity on just like a light bike ride or something like that, and just getting your body used to that and strengthening that heart and making it more efficient, I think it's a beautiful thing to do. So those would be the four that I would give you, man. And in that order of importance to me, basically the rolling, the diet, lifting weights, and then you're getting into some additional cardio if that's what you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And finding the right frequency for yourself too. Like how many, what's good for you? How hard are you overtraining initially? Like you said, you don't like the HIIT training because I like HIIT training, but it depends on where you're at, how much you train, but also it's neurologically, it's not just physically, it's neurologically taxing too.
Get wore out.
It screws with your whole, how your body functions. So you got to allow for recovery.
And if jiu-jitsu is already intense to you,
exactly.
Like if jiu-jitsu is intense to you and you're lifting weights and then you throw the HIIT on top of that, you can just fry your nervous system.
You're just going to feel flat and you're going to feel tired. So like, I think find that frequency. And like you said, I've always enjoyed you build like a baseline cardio too. So if you can't get to the gym as much as you want, maybe do some drilling, try to simulate doing some solo drills. I mean, you could use a heavy bag. You don't need a grappling dummy, as simple as a heavy bag, or even like a big exercise ball. You can use those for some passing drills.
And even with that, like there's some really good stuff out there. Cameron Haynes has got one. My buddy Ryan's got one at GMB, Gold Medal Bodies. They do like just movement.
Yeah.
Like it's not specific to jiu-jitsu, but it's good movement. It's great exercise, and you're developing good neuromuscular control, and it's really good stuff. And so again, to me, this is just me. I'd say screw the solo drills all the time, unless you're already rolling a lot. I would say go do some just these different movements to like develop different skills and flexibility and other movements that can then contribute. Because I promise you, when you roll with for instance, I've rolled with white belt gymnasts, and when they come in, they have such good control of their bodies. They're a handful to deal with, even on that level, that low level, because they've got such good body control. And so I think it's an important thing. So I think even doing something like that, or even swimming's great too for cardio. And you're training with breath too, because you have to breathe while you're doing it. So there's a lot of cool examples, but a lot of times they're very simple ideas.
Yeah, the breath's a great point, because the breathing, I'll do when I got my road bike, I started just focusing on like how hard can I push myself with just breathing in my nose, in and out of my nose only. Because that's like if you listen to like somebody like Brian McKenzie talks about, you have gears in breathing, you know, in your nose, out your nose, then in your nose, out your mouth, and in your mouth, out your mouth. So there's a lot more gears than that. But that's kind of, so if you can control your breath and, you know, find that pace and kind of increase it. So he had recommended on when he was on the podcast, try to actually roll. This is probably for more upper belts, but try to roll just breathing in and out your nose.
I do for the most part until I get into a really hard roll.
Yeah. Exactly. Until you got to push it. And then like, I'll try to push it and then I'll slow it back down. I'll try to focus back on in the nose, out the nose.
Well, I've been training like with my breath, doing like just nasal breathing almost all the time. It feels very weird now to breathe in my mouth. Like it feels, that feels really weird. It's
inefficient too.
It just feels very strange to take a deep breath in through my mouth. It's like that good nasal, just nose breathing. That's just it feels so weird to breathe through my mouth now.
All right, this is a good one. Maybe Chewy, if people don't know the Iron Squirrel video, tell them exactly what the Iron Squirrel is, and then they had said some good advice in upper defense while injured. What else would you recommend to practice to do while injured? He's got a knee injury, and this is from Nicholas.
So the Iron Squirrel, if you guys want to see it in action, one of my videos from last week has it. It's from last Friday, and basically it's a defensive position where basically you ball up and you block the person from getting underhooks and getting head control. It's a really good thing, and I got really good at the position when I got injured by just laying down on my back and just doing that movement. And I got really good at defending submissions and framing because of that. Now, other things you could do, well, I mean, you really can do anything as long as it doesn't affect that knee. I mean, there's tons of stuff you could do. You know, that's one of the things where when you get injured in jiu-jitsu, and it's going to happen, one of the things you get really good about is sort of figuring out your body's limitations and becoming aware of certain parts. You learn how to protect certain parts of your body and all that stuff. But, you know, I would just say do whatever you can do on the mat. You can also drill and stuff, of course. And then other than that, one of the things I'm always a big proponent for is watching jiu-jitsu. I think it's just really important to watch it, to see it, because as you watch more of it, you get ideas and you absorb things just visually. You know, even like when we stuck around and watched the competitions this past weekend, we were just watching the matches. And I mean, Brandon, who, again, he's only got about 6 months of jiu-jitsu in, he was watching it and he's like, I understand so much more of jiu-jitsu right now because I just sat and watched it for like 5 to 6 hours a day. Yeah. You know, you just understand more of it. And so I would just recommend watching some jiu-jitsu matches or rolls or whatever it is that you want to watch related to jiu-jitsu. It's just a good thing to immerse yourself in.
We're talking about Brandon Reed, by the way, who was on the podcast, episode 176, and he's a 3-time NAI wrestling champion, and then he's also a blue belt, or competes as a blue belt. He just won the world. So let's see. So this one was from Sam. I don't know if may need a little more information on this, and he basically.
I remember. So he asked this question. Okay. So his question is, he says, hey, Chewy, I asked a question about doing wrestling, doing my wrestling season at school versus staying at my MMA gym, 17 years old. Could you answer that? Yeah. So I actually saved that for a video. I'll probably do that video anyway for you, Sam, but I'll give you the short answer. Go to wrestling. If you want to do wrestling, wrestling happens for a limited time in high school. It can be a great thing for high school, both on a situation where you get to compete and you get to compete a lot, right? It's even a good thing for like friends, because most of my friends in high school were wrestlers. You know, you're a part of a cool team and it's a lot of fun. So my encouragement would be to do wrestling first and then just come back to MMA later on. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. Your MMA jiu-jitsu gym's not going anywhere. And the wrestling is limited. You only can do it for so long in high school. And a lot of times what you'll get from those wrestling seasons is you'll get a ton of competitions, which can be really good for your skill level, because no matter what you think about competitions, they make your game better, because you're getting ready for something, you know, that's kind of stressful. So you prepare for it harder, you focus on it harder, you learn a lot from losing or winning, and you kind of see what happens. And so I would encourage you to do that, because that's one of the things that makes wrestlers so darn difficult to deal with, is because they competed so much, they got a lot better, and they know how to turn on those gears. So I would encourage you to go wrestle and then come back after it's over.
All right. Let me see. There's one that I looked at. It was about choosing a gym. So I'm looking for.
Go back up to that logical order. That one right there. Is it normal
order? Where's that? Did I pass it?
Right there.
Okay, right there.
So is it normal to feel invisible to the coach? Yeah, I guess so. Think about this. There's a lot of people inside your gym, and your coach may not necessarily, he probably sees you or she probably sees you, but they may not come up to you and say a bunch of stuff all the time. What I would encourage you to do is make yourself visible to them. So instead of waiting for them to come and like give you attention, come up and talk to them, say, hey coach, how's it going today? Like, how's your day going? Right. Or whatever. Or, hey coach, I really like that move the other day. Put yourself in there in front of them. There's nothing wrong with coming up to them and talking to them about something. I don't know the dynamic. I'm going off of like my gym. If like if one of my students wanted to be seen a little bit more, come up and talk to me. Let's chat. I mean, I'm here, I'm not going to like snub you away, so come up and chat, and that's and then obviously you can push yourself during training so they see it, but just as you're coming in, maybe make it a point to say hey to them, because there's probably a lot of people in your gym, and if you allow yourself to just go in, not talk to your coach and just sit down and train, then it's very likely that maybe they don't notice you as much. But if you come in and like, hey, what's going on? Just like say something to them or whatever, they're probably going to notice you more. For me, I notice the students that come up to me, like I learn their names faster because they come up and make it, hey, Chewy, hey, what's up, Gabe? Or hey, what's up, Mike? Whatever. Because they come up and say something, and I can usually remember their names quicker than I can the person that's really quiet, never talks to me, or doesn't like come up to me and talk to me like when they come into the gym or whatever. Not to say I don't come up around and talk to my students, because of course I do. And I try to make sure that I try to give each student a little attention every day when I come into those classes as I'm going around helping them with their techniques. But again, anytime I'm in a social situation, if I want to be seen, which we all do, we all want to be recognized. Everybody wants recognition. They want acknowledgement. It's what we all do. Go up and talk to them. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Your coach is a human being, and maybe you have questions for them, or you'd like to make a comment on something they did. It's a perfect time to do it. And so that would probably be helpful to you for being, quote, not invisible to them.
That's why those stripes for a white belt are so important. You feel noticed.
Yeah.
You feel like somebody's paying attention. You also feel like somebody's noticing your progress.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's the reason why people make Facebook posts about God knows what. They want to like, for instance, they'll share really crazy things about, they want to be acknowledged. They want people to notice them.
Yeah.
That's a urge. That's a yearning that all humans have. We want to be acknowledged for stuff. I mean,
yeah.
And typically, I mean, you see this in culture sometimes where, the way that we used to get acknowledgement was by doing good stuff. Go do some good stuff. Go do something do something remarkable, something that is that's worthy of being remarked upon. Right.
Yeah.
Go do that. Now it's become like you don't do anything and you just like complain about stuff. You can get attention. Everybody can like jump on the bandwagon, but that's my boomerism talking.
Yeah.
Like I'm like 36. I'm like, I feel like I'm sold.
Yeah. I do think like get to class a little early. And like, if I get to class early enough, I like to, walk around and say hey to everybody, and especially like the black belts and stuff. Like say, hey coach, how's it going? That's it. I mean, that's simple. And it's just, I feel like it's kind, and it's also like respectful to do that, just to like say, hey, I'm here. So, yeah. Chewy, and I'll answer this one as well. I think as a student, it's important. It's from North and Dawn.
See it?
It says, I'm in my early 40s, 240 pounds, but looking to restart training. Should the vibe of a gym be important in choosing to train there?
Hell yeah.
Yep.
The vibe, like
huge.
40, like you're in your 40s, so it's probably, you're not looking for that next world champion run at like adult black belt, right? So the vibe is probably going to be the most important thing for you, because you want to probably go to a place where you feel like you belong. You feel like the people kind of like you mesh well with them. You probably don't, like, you might have expert training at one gym, but then you don't feel like you belong, or you don't like the people as much. Whereas the other gym may have good training, maybe not as good, but like the vibe is great. Like, and you love being there. The gym that you love going to is going to be the one that you're going to want to do. You're going to want to go to. So you don't want to go to a place where every day it's like a drag because, your coach texts on his phone and people aren't very inviting. Whereas if you go to a gym where you feel like it's cool and everybody's excited to be there and that kind of thing, that's going to be the place that you want to go to. So yeah, what I would suggest you do is go around and try all the gyms in your area that may be there. Find the one that feels good and just roll with it and go with it.
We had numerous people do that travel. Like we have some military people that come in, or people that are traveling, or like they're in town for a couple weeks or even a couple months. They'll go to other gyms. And if you find a gym with a good vibe and the good training, that's where it's at. That's a sweet spot.
Well, even like I remember like with several people that have come to my gym, Some had training previously, different places.
Yeah.
Some are brand new students, and they want to try gyms like that. And I'll literally give them, here are all the gyms in the area that I would check out. There may be more because sometimes I don't know, but these are all the gyms that I know of that are reputable gyms. Go try them. If you like us the best, you come on back. But otherwise, if you find one of those that fits you better, it's all good. Don't worry about it. No sweat. But go try those gyms out and find the one that you want, because the gym that sort of fits you personally is probably going to be the one you want to go to. It'll be the one that'll be the easiest to go to continuously.
Yeah, and you'll feel like you want to come back. Like, there's one thing about going and getting smashed at, if you're a new person, but everybody does it with like a smile, and everybody's like, yeah, man, that was great. Everybody just works really hard. There's something about that, going to the gym and working really hard, and everybody's maybe tough roles. But then you go to a gym that's maybe nobody really talks to anybody. Everybody's just there. They do their thing. They train a little bit, roll a little bit, and they leave. And you'll see that. Like, I think when you have guys and women at the gym that, like, after class is over, they're sitting around bullshitting and talking to each other, and we're just like laughing and cutting up with each other. That's when and that's everybody, white belts, black belts, blue belts, everybody, men, women, everybody's just, and you got people from the boxing side coming over and the weightlifting side, and everybody's just
now for some that may not like that jovial sort of goofiness that we have. That may not be the environment you want. You might want a gym where basically people just come in and they're ready to like kill each other. That's fine. You just got to find the gym that you like. And so I think finding the gym vibe is super, super important.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crucial. So there's a question about trusting your choke, and I think Chewy says a couple questions. So in relation to trusting, quote unquote, trusting your choke, when is the time to let go of a dominant position if you have control of your opponent? But not
so what when you say trusting your choke, what I'm thinking about he means is basically like you put someone in a choke
and they're not tapping.
Yes,
that's what I was thinking.
So that's where I'm going to go with this. And that's what I'm going to think what you're thinking about. So what's really important, this is what I do with my training partners. If I'm trying to hit a choke and I feel like it's there, but they're not tapping, I'll loosen up and literally ask them, hey, was that choking you? Like I'll loosen up and go, hey, was that choking you? And they can say, no, it was kind of a crank. Or, yeah, it was there. You almost had me. Had you held it for another 2 seconds, I would have been out. I'll ask them for feedback right then and there, because like a lot of times when I'm trying new chokes out, or I'm trying to find the feel of the movement, I want to get that feedback. I don't want to wait till the end of the roll. I want to ask like right now, hey, was it almost there? Just so that if I go for it again later, I can try to find the right space. And so, I think that for me, a lot of times with chokes, anytime I put someone in a successful choke, you'll start to feel them fidget, because they're trying to fight. Yeah. That tip, you can almost feel it in their body if it's there. And if you don't feel it, then I tend to let go and go for something else. That's what I do personally.
I think with a little bit of experience, like I always love going for loop chokes. Yeah. And some of them are a little bit slower. It depends. So like you got to think about it. Do you have like an air choke or strangle or a blood choke? And those can be different. It depends on the type of choke. Some, like a guillotine, that can come on really quick and they'll tap right away. So if you feel like you have a guillotine set in, you're like in there for 6-7 seconds, probably don't have it or they're already asleep.
Yeah. Whereas an arm triangle, that one can happen a lot slower.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of those chokes, like a Darce, or even some of those, they can kind of sit in for a little bit, but yeah. So it depends on the type of choke as well. Let me see. Chewy, what do you think? First, this is also variability. For a first timer, when do you recommend competing?
If you've got my game plan guide that I give away on my website, I would first recommend being able to fill in the blanks on all those techniques with your escapes and your takedowns and everything else. And then I would talk to your coach and ask them and say like, hey coach, when do you think I would be ready? Just so because they can probably see your game a little bit more and they can kind of let you know. But as soon as you have a game plan and you feel like you're competitive in the gym, that kind of thing, I think it would be perfectly fine, because you can be partnered up with your belt level and age and everything else. But talk to your coach for sure to say like, hey, am I ready? Yeah. And they can kind of give you probably a better read. But if you were looking for a specific time, I'd probably say at least like if you've never done anything else before, 3 to 6 months. At least 3 to 6 months, just to get familiar with all the positions and stuff like that. Maybe longer, but 3 to 6 months probably be decent for a white belt tournament.
I think it was like 6 months when I first competed, and I hadn't really done. I mean, I played soccer and stuff. I never did any kind of grappling. But you'll be in a division and maybe start a regional, something that's more, kind of smaller tournament.
Try to find a small tournament. Don't like, all right, I've been training for like 3 months and I'm going to go do, the worlds.
Yeah.
Unless you can't do the worlds as your white belt, but like a big one. Like try to like do a small turn. Yeah, unless you're like a wrestler. But I'm talking about people that are fresh into grappling.
All right, Chewy. Here we go. Doug says he was rolling with my 4-stripe brown belt instructor last week. For a brief moment past his guard. Should I take that as a small victory or not let it get to my head? Depends on what they were doing, number one, if they were giving you the business or not. They were going if they're really, really focusing on smashing you, or they're really trying, or if they're working stuff.
Yeah. Here's the deal. So here's the deal. One, I mean, be happy about it. It's perfectly fine to be happy about it. The big issue is one, like what Eugene was saying, like, you don't know what they were doing. They could have been like being very easy. So whatever, but just, you can be happy about it. The big issue with this is, and this is something I tell people because this is a mistake I made. When you start to like in your head have like a tally going on of like, okay, I beat that guy, boom. And I passed his guard, boom. And I just beat that blue belt or whatever. What happens is you start to expect some of these things to happen later on, or you get too attached to those things later on. Like for instance, if you beat a blue belt, let's say you submit a blue belt, this like blue belt Bob, and all of a sudden 2 weeks later, blue belt Bob submits you. Like, oh shit. Like I beat blue belt Bob 2 weeks ago, and you start thinking about that. So I wouldn't get too attached to it, but be happy for it. Like if you pass or if you submit someone or you do anything successful, be happy about it. Like it was a good moment. But again, those moments things aren't static. So don't get too attached to it, because the people that you're rolling with are going to change. They're probably going to get better. They're going to like get you off balance. They're going to mess you up sometimes too. So be happy that it happened, but don't get too attached to it or too wrapped up in it. And again, sometimes like Eugene was saying, sometimes you don't know what they're doing. I remember I had there was a female that trained with us, and I remember she was rolling with Tony, one of our brown belts at the time, one of the black belts now. They're rolling, and Tony was taking it easy on her. She was brand new, right? So he's rolling easy. Well, when she was rolling with him, I remember she told me, she said, "Oh, like I passed his guard and submitted him the other day." I was like, "Well, Tony was letting you work," and she said, "No, he was going." I said, "No, he was not. He was letting you go." So then the next day he like, he like smashed her and put like, just didn't let her have anything. I was like, I told you, so it is what it is. So again, be happy about it, but just don't be too attached to it, because you don't want to be developing expectations for yourself about how your rolls are supposed to go. And it's not something to like talk about, because, if the brown belt was letting you work, you don't want to go, "Oh, hey, like I almost passed your guard the other day." Like if you did, even so what? Doesn't matter.
Yeah. I'd like to know how I can roll. They've asked this a couple times, so we'll answer it. I'd like to know how I can roll with people without giving the impression of me trying to win, because I go harder sometimes because I think I see an opening as a white belt. Any advice? I mean, I think you're trying to win as a white belt.
You are trying to win.
Yeah.
So hold on, think. There's nothing wrong with trying to win.
Right.
That's what we're all doing.
Yes.
Like, I mean, when we're rolling with each other, like even if like I'm doing it in a playful manner, I'm trying to beat someone at rolling. That's what we're doing, because that's how we get better. If all I do is flop around and let people practice on me, well, then that's not going to make their jiu-jitsu any better, but I make them better by trying to go for it myself. So there's nothing wrong with trying to win.
Yeah.
Right. It's when you go a little bit too far to try to win. That's a bad situation.
If you're reckless.
If you're reckless.
Yeah.
If you're not thinking about technique, and, if you endanger people with fast submissions, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing that I would do, is it Bonte edits? Is make sure that you present yourself in a very friendly manner before and after the rolls, right? So like as long as we're going hard, like for instance, here's the thing, like if I'm going hard with someone, if like, let's say for instance, they headbutt me or something, a lot of times me and buddies will be like, "You okay?" "I'm good, man." They're checking on me while we're going hard, before the roll and after the roll, super cool. It's all good. We're just rolling hard. Right. But if the guy's kind of quiet, doesn't say anything, and then it rolls hard, like if he headbutts me, doesn't check on me or anything else, then I'm kind of like, whoa. So again, just make sure that you are being inviting and friendly, and then, go hard if you want to, and just also be receptive to how your partner's rolling. If you're going against someone and they're like super loose and they don't have the aggression to match you because they're not at the same level as you might dial it down a little bit. It's kind of like a dance. It's like, for instance, if I was at the bar and I was dancing with a girl,
I'd love to see that.
My hands were going a little bit south, And then she was like,
That girl is Jess, by the way.
Yeah, the girl's Jess. And Jess was like,
Nick,
no. And then, she's going to let me know that that's not what she wants to do. And so I'm going to be receptive to that, right? Well, when you're rolling, if you roll with someone and all of a sudden you feel like they're kind of being loose or whatever, then you can be receptive to that and say, okay, let me back off the gas pedal a little bit, just so I'm not smashing this person that's just trying to go easy or whatever. And then you can also find people in your gym that want to go hard. Find the people that are gamers that want to like get rowdy and go after it, and you can roll with them more as well. Just an idea.
Mm-hmm. Rosie's got a unique situation, actually, a good one. 42-year-old woman started training 2 months ago, forced to train with my purple belt boyfriend because the other white belts ignore me, which is weird. I don't know why that would be. Do you think I'll be able to progress without them?
Well, sure, you'd be able to progress without them, but like that's a weird situation, Rosie. I don't know why white belts would ignore you.
Yeah, like I was thinking of the advantage of like you've got like a purple belt right there, to learn from. But yes, you want to.
But you want to train with other people too.
Exactly.
Plus,
I agree.
You don't want it to be like one of those things where your boyfriend's like, God, get away from me, like go do something, like because you become too attached to him because you're the only person he has. So here's what I think. I've seen this happen before. I've seen people come into the gym and think people are ignoring them. Mm-hmm. When it's not that, they're not ignoring them at all. It's just their perception. I don't know if that's the case, but like I've had that happen before where someone was like, Chewy, like, do you like, people have asked me before, Chewy, do you not like me? I'm like, no, what are you talking about? And they're thinking, then they'll bring up these things. And I'm like, I totally never recognized it that way. So you could be building up something that's not. The flip side is maybe they are ignoring you or something. And then I would like kind of ask them like, hey, is everything all right? I like to bring things out in the air because I want to know. Because, for me, like anytime I see a little friction as a coach, for instance, I try to like snip it in the bud right there, because you can't have that in a gym. It's got to be this open thing where we're all able to train together and be cool, because otherwise you lose that community. And so, one, I would probably just, I don't know why you're saying that they're trying to ignore you. So maybe you could elaborate on that, but maybe just go up and talk to them. Go up and ask them to roll. Go up and ask them to drill one day, that kind of thing, and just see what happens. And get to know those people a little bit better. And maybe during the time period, you might find that maybe your thoughts of them ignoring you are maybe unfounded.
You got a couple more, Chew?
Sure, let's do a couple more and we'll wrap up.
All right. Here's an interesting one. This is from Evangelia. Mm-hmm. It says, hello all. I'm 33-year-old and 2-stripe white belt. Due to work, I can only train once a week. I decided to quit. What would you say about how often we should train to have meaning? Like to have some kind of impact, for it to be
meaningful
effective.
Impact.
Yeah.
Because meaning can mean whatever you want things to mean. The fact that you were training and you enjoyed it, well, that had meaning. Like if you went in once a week and you had fun, there's meaning to that. Mm-hmm. And now if you get into the training and it's frustrating you because you can't train enough to like catch up, because the problem is a lot of people are going to be able to train more than you, and you're going to fall behind. And so if that bothers you, then you shouldn't train, because then there's no, like, for instance, you shouldn't do any sort of training because your relationship with training is probably going to last forever, right? You shouldn't do any type of training that you hate or that makes you upset or anything, right? Like people sometimes will say, Chewy, I do jiu-jitsu, but I hate it, or I'm, they're having, whatever negative feelings. And they're like, what should I do? I'm like, you should probably quit, because if you don't want to do it, why go? Like, it's like if someone was like, said, Chewy, man, I hate lifting weights. Like, what would you recommend to do? What else? I'm like, well, don't, because you're obviously your drive to lift weights and build muscle is less than whatever else it is. Don't do it. Go do something else. Do some other type of training. Find something else that engages you, that makes you have fun with it. So with that, I mean, personally, I've been in that situation where I was like, I wasn't a white belt, but I was only able to train for like once a week.
Yeah.
I kept training. I was like, I gotta quit. I gotta keep going. I can't stop. I like training. I enjoy it. So even if it's at 1 day a week, it's a fun 1 day of the week. But for you, it's up to you. So as far as meaningful training, I've seen guys get pretty good off of 2 days a week. If you can do more, it's obviously better, right? But I've seen guys maintain and be tough as nails on 2 meaningful days a week. And by meaningful, it goes back to what Eugene was talking about earlier about deliberate training. When those dudes come in, they're not coming in and saying, all right, I'm just going to go with the flow, see what happens. They have a game plan. They're working on specific moves. They know what they're doing, and they get better just fine. And so I think 2 days a week is probably going to be the minimum to make meaningful impact on your game. 1 day a week is probably just sort of like almost keeping you even. So
I agree, because I actually, when I was a white belt, I had to travel to like 2 hours away, and I had to stay for an internship basically, and I can only go one day a week.
Yep.
And so that was tough, like going to a new gym and training 1 day a week. And but it was just to kind of keep the ball rolling. It wasn't like a never ending thing for me. So I kind of knew it was just like a way to keep some skill there. Yeah, I guess if it's like a never ending, I think once a week's tough. But if there's like an end to it, I think you can stick with it for a while. But if it's just like, this is just the way my job is forever, you could try maybe get like find a gym that's closer. We've got 6 a.m.s. I mean, there could be other times. There's usually ways you can work around.
That's another thing maybe too, is if your work schedule is just kind of wild, you might be able to talk with some of your other gym partners and ask them if there's someone that wants to do maybe a 6 a.m. or whatever kind of class. Because I know Eugene and a lot of the guys last year, they started coming in at 6 a.m. to train, and now we've got like a good 6 a.m. crew. You know,
killers,
some tough dudes in there. So I mean, that could be something as a way to work around it.
And I've seen some people, some of the practitioners in the 6 a.m. class have gotten immensely better.
Oh yeah,
because the classes are smaller. You're getting more one-on-one attention. You're learning things that maybe not everyone's learning, so you can implement these techniques not everybody's seeing. So it can be really beneficial. Any tips, Chewy? I kind of have an idea on this one. Any tips on how to improve squeeze endurance outside of rolling? Is there anything you do? And it could, I don't know if it's meaning legs. I assume the arms. You got anything?
Yeah. Squeeze. That squeeze endurance. Squeeze on something. So what you do, here's what you do. So
oh God.
What you do is you go grab a girlfriend.
Oh Lord. And
you're gonna grab her, and you're gonna pick her up off the ground. You're just gonna hug her for as long as you can until you gotta drop her.
Kind of it.
Yeah, no.
I actually have a thing on this. So
oh, here we go.
I actually had
Dr. Eugene's gonna tell us how to build
seriously.
What's up?
So I've done some work actually with medicine balls.
Okay.
And so you start like with you can grab different grips to the side, in front of you, whatever you like. So you can do it that way and actually focus on like slowly increasing tension.
Sure.
Get into your desired tension and holding and even moving position. You can really, you can really activate and get a good, more squeeze endurance.
Sure.
I think it's applicable to an extent to jiu-jitsu, but I mean, I don't know why you would need a ton of squeeze endurance per se, because I think jiu-jitsu is more of like you're squeezing something, you're letting go, and you're squeezing. So if you're trying to build like a baseline squeeze, I mean, I think
you're probably going to develop with the rolling too.
I think so too. But there are ways you can like use a medicine ball and just start like slowly ramping up and holding like.
So medicine ball, or go cuddle your girlfriend,
cuddle your
lady, whatever. Got Matt Llewellyn.
The what?
Llewellyn. That's a weird word. He's down there a little bit. It says I accidentally choked a white belt unconscious.
Here we go. Let's do it.
Matt Llewellyn.
We're there.
Llewellyn. Okay, that's a hard name for me to say. I keep wanting to say Llewellyn. Matt Llewellyn. There we go. I accidentally choked a white belt unconscious in a head and arm yesterday. Dude never tapped. Any good stories of people who refuse to tap? So here's the thing about the arm triangle choke, and maybe this guy at your gym.
Hero is a good story, by the way.
Oh yeah, I'll share a couple with you. So Matt, sometimes there's guys that are stubborn. That kind of thing does happen, but sometimes it's just they don't know it's coming on. Like for instance, I had a guy years ago, who got caught in chokes, who's not a stubborn person, just got choked out. And with an arm triangle chokes, those come on kind of slow, and all of a sudden it like starts hitting, and all of a sudden you're going out. Like it feels like nothing. It feels like you can fight, and then all of a sudden you're waking up. Yeah. So here's a couple good ones for you. So one, when Chad was a kid, about 16 years old, there was this big military guy coming. I think he's a Marine. Comes in and trains like about 250. He's jacked. Comes in and he's wanting to fight and everything else. I'm like, just roll with that kid. And just go roll with the kid. And Chad was like 130-pound beanpole, 6'1". I mean, he's so skinny. He had the Bieber haircut, like swooped hair. So he gets out there and rolls and puts the guy in a triangle choke. And guy goes unconscious. I wake the dude up and he's like, "What happened?" I was like, you need to chill out, bro. And make sure you tap out. Like, you just got choked out by a 16-year-old kid. That kind of thing. He didn't feel too good. He was embarrassed and he left. After that class was over, of course. We had another one. My student Hiroyuki back in the day, Mr. Yamada.
I love him.
Yes. So Hiro was he was a Japanese gentleman that was from Hiroshima. And so I remember he was training one day, and he got put out. And the guy that he got put out by had sometimes had a knack, if you will, for sometimes like holding stuff too long or not paying attention, being always aware of what was going on. So I'm in the middle of rolling, and this guy comes up to me and says, Chewy. He's like, Hero's asleep. Hero went out. I was like, okay. So I didn't think anything of it. I was like, we'll shake his legs and we'll wake him up, whatever. And then, put his legs up and his eyes open, but he's still just staring blankly. And I'm just staring there at him. I look at the other student that choked Hero. And I said, how long did you hold him out for? And he's like, no, I promised. I let him go. And I look at him. I said, Hero? And, he had, with the very thick Japanese accent, he goes, yes. And I was like, this is Chewy. I was like, you just got choked out. And he looked at me. He goes, oh, really? And he gets up and he starts like, oh, man. He's like, I was having this dream about this doctor operating on me or whatever. Then I was looking at it. I was like, I'm on the operating table. And then the last one, there was a choke. So I've got this, it's like a thrust choke. And one of my students, Jeff, who's like super, super tough, he's not one of those people that refuses to tap. He's just tough and he's going to come at you.
He eats the choke as long as he possibly
can. He will
eat
the choke, but he'll tap. But hey, listen, he'll make your chokes honest. So you're not going to get no like punk choke on him. Like he's going to make sure it's a good choke. Oh my God. I put him in I was in the bottom of north south. And I've got this little sneaky choke that I hit, Yes. So I hit him in that choke, and all of a sudden,
wait, you were in the bottom?
Yeah.
You turd.
I got a little sneaky way of setting it up.
Yuck.
So like he was passing, he was coming around with a choke, and then all of a sudden, like he's running right into the choke, and I guess he didn't feel it at first. And all of a sudden, like he's there, and I feel him just kind of laying on me. I was like, oh no! So I rolled him over and woke him up, and you just see him like you just pick their legs up, and then the blood comes, and then like most people do, he's like wakes up and he's like, oh shit, I got choked out, didn't I? I was like, yeah. So, honestly, some guys are stubborn, but most people, it happens on accident just because your blood's pumping, you're going, and all of a sudden you get that pressure on your carotids, and it's just enough sometimes to turn the lights out.
It's sneaky because some of them you can breathe, but the blood, it's more of a blood choke. So
if I'm correct, there's a pressure. So there's a buildup of the blood.
Yes.
And a restriction of the blood, but it's also the pressure that gets applied to the carotids is a signal to basically for the body to turn off.
Yeah. I think from what I've seen, a lot of baseball chokes they're kind of deceiving because people give up position almost for some of those in the gi. They give up position and it's like, oh, I'm passing. This is great. And you'll see it. I've seen a lot of it.
I got caught with a baseball choke when I was a brown belt.
Yeah.
Took the guy down with a single leg and he just he fell over and I was like, yes. Yeah. I'm like, this is great. And then as I was passing, I was like choking, and it surprised. I'd never, at this point in my training, I'd never really had it used on me. So I was standing there almost like frozen. I'm like, this shouldn't be happening. Yeah. I'm in side control, and now the guy's turning to his back, and I'm done. It's like, oh no.
It's one of those things like I'm doing everything right. Why is this happening? This should not happen from this position in this way. So anyway, that's one that's a sneaky one. We'll end with this one. Stinky. How do I tell someone who stinks in the gym to politely take a shower?
So honestly, Brandon, you're going to have to probably pass that off to your coach. Let him know. It's like, man, like Bob over here, man, he stinks to high heaven, here's a good one for you.
Well, you're probably not going to be the only one to notice it too.
Yeah. So it's good to talk to your coaches, let them know what's up. So here's two examples for you. So one was a gi, one was the person. So one guy was the gi, come up to him, and we get to the gym, and one of my students says, Chewy, man, it was actually one of my business partners. He goes, Chewy, you need to talk to so-and-so to get them to wash their gi. I was like, why? Is it that bad? Like, oh, bro, it's terrible. So I walk over there, and as soon as I was in like a 10-foot distance, I started getting like wafts of this smell. And I was like, oh,
right.
Brutal, bro.
Cat pee one.
It smelled like you just took your gi and just shoved it in your car and just took it back out later after training.
Shoved it in your car.
Like shoved it in your car, let it sit. It was foul. And which made me more impressed that the guy rolling with him was rolling. I was like, what? This is so weird. So then I get up there and I look at him and said, Mike, because that was the guy's name. I was like, let me ask you a question. When was the last time you washed that gi? He looked up to the ceiling and goes, and before he could even say anything, I was like, just go take it home. If you can't immediately just tell me yesterday or, whatever, the last time I trained, then if you have to think about it, that means it's been like not recent. We need to get that gi washed. I was like, because that smell, that's not victory. That's bacteria. So I was like, take it home, take that sucker home, go wash it.
Wash your belt too.
Yep. I wash my belt probably once a week. I hang dry it most of the time and wash it once a week.
Yeah.
The other time was this was a person. So I had a young student who didn't wear deodorant at all. Right. And some people, like for instance, I don't know if do you wear deodorant?
I wear like the natural stuff.
Yeah. But like when you get to the gym, by the time you get to the gym, I can smell you, but it's not like when we roll, but like, it's not a stinky smell. It's just a smell. Like it's Eugene. Right.
Oh God.
You know what I mean? Like, don't take it to personal.
My wife walks around and sniffs me all the time. I don't know what that was. It's the pheromones.
It's a pheromone. She likes your scent. I mean, you think about how divorced we are from those scents, right? But then this guy, he stunk. Like he smelled like, not showered armpit, And so I came up to him. I said, "Hey, bro, come here real quick." He's like, "Yeah." I was like, I asked him, I said, "What kind of deodorant do you wear?" And he said, "Oh, I stink, don't I?" And he said, "Yeah, because he knew." I was like, "Yeah." It's like, well, it's like if you're aware of it, then like help us all out and just slap a little speed stick on there, know. And again, I'm not a big, like, I'm a kind of a weird guy with stuff. So like, I don't wear the deodorant I use doesn't have aluminum or zinc.
Yeah, mine's the same.
It's basically like it's baking soda and all this other stuff in there. Cause I'm like, I don't know, but it seems like it wouldn't be a great idea to put
aluminum in my body.
Put crazy chemicals right there attached to like an easy zone for your lymph system. It doesn't seem like a great idea.
Like the highway for your whole body.
So it's like, I wear hippie deodorant, but it works pretty well. The one we got, it's kind of expensive. But the one Jess and I like, it's called like Native.
That's what I have.
I like that one. It's really good. They've got a bunch of different scents. It's expensive, but man, it actually works pretty well.
$12.
$12.
What the hell?
But it works. Like, you put it on and then like your armpits don't stink.
Yeah.
But I would talk to your coach and let them take it, because again, it can make it kind of awkward. If you go up to the dude like, "Hey, bro, you're stinking," But if you just talk to your coach can come to them, and it comes from more of an authoritative figure rather than a peer, and it might be a little bit easier for them to swallow. So.
All right.
That is the podcast.
That's the podcast. Well, let's thank our sponsors.
All right, guys. Thanking our sponsors.
Let's watch the numbers.
Let's watch the numbers drop. But first off, I want to say that I was happy, and most of you guys were on the early part of this, heard this. I was happy that a couple of you guys sent me emails that got some Charlotte's Web products. One of you guys got the CBD balm that you put on your muscles, and the other one got like the sleep gummies. And I got a couple positive messages from people that were like, "Hey, the stuff actually worked. Thank you for not being a shyster trying to take my money." And so again, I'm happy to do anything that we share in the podcast is something that I like, something that Eugene likes, something we actually use versus just like, "Hey, these people are throwing money at us," because for the most part, we get a lot of requests for stuff that never make it to you guys, because I'm like, no, like for instance, like I remember like someone was like an online game. It was like, this online game that they wanted to, I was like, I'm not doing this because I'm talking about jiu-jitsu and I'm talking to people like for different reasons and stuff. I'm not going to play this. I don't think this is somehow going to be conducive to the people here. So like, no way. But anyway, I like Charlotte's Web, and so we promote it, and it was happy to get those messages from you guys that used it and had positive results as well. So I was happy to see that. So again, if you guys want to check it out as well, you can go to charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu, 15% off the order. And again, as I said earlier in the podcast, everybody's endocannabinoid system is different. You need to use it and figure out what works for you. And by the way, for you guys that looked at the picture that I posted on the YouTube community page or the Instagram page, that was hemp. It looks the same as cannabis, but that was hemp.
Similar, yeah.
It was a hemp. That's a hemp plant.
We're at the Charlotte's Web farm.
Yeah, everybody was like, Chewy's an herb aficionado. I'm like, it's hemp.
It's hemp, bro.
It's hemp, bro. So
cool. You can you can squeeze it. It smells and
it smells like hops.
Yeah,
it smells like beer. So
it was cool. There's so many different varieties of CBD, or not CBD, the hemp plant. So
also coming up soon with Epic Roll. We're going to be doing a line of rash guards. So we just did the gis, the Origin gis, and kind of how that worked was I used Origin's products for a little bit, for a couple of years, loved them. I was like, I want to get my gi made with this. Matt has some awesome shorts and rash guards. I like his stuff. So I was like, hey, buddy, why don't we go together on this? Well, actually, it was more Eugene and me and Matt all together. So, hey, why don't we go together on this thing and make a Jiu-Jitsu rash guard and shorts order? So we're going to be doing, I'm still working with the prototype now and getting all the design work done. and kind of match up the way I want it. But we'll have the Velcro-less shorts, and we'll have a nice fitting black rash guard that you get your hands on. It's really cool looking. I'm really excited about it. You'll probably see some videos in the future with me wearing it, but that'll probably be sometime in the next month. So just kind of keep your eyes out on it. I'll be talking about it a bunch, probably ad nauseum for me and you both, but I just want to make sure that everybody hears about it, because it never fails. Like the gis went out and everybody was like, Chewy, I wanted those gis. When are you going to be doing it again? And I'm like, I'm not, because we just did those. So now we're moving on. So just kind of keep an eye out. For sometime next month, we'll be doing those Epic Roll Chewjitsu gis or rash guards and shorts. That should be fun. And we're going to try to throw in a couple little bonuses with them to sweeten the deal for you and give you more for your money. And again, if you want to check out anything at Matt's gym or his website, which again is the reason why I started using his products and I like them. But if you want to check out some of the stuff there, epicrollbjj.com, promo code is Jiu-Jitsu, 15% off the order. One of my favorite shirts that he makes right now, it's this Jiu Jitsu. I don't know why they said that funny. And it says, because nothing else makes sense anymore. And it's like perfect, because I feel like even like this past weekend, we were at the Worlds, and I'm looking around at everybody, and there's just such a mixture of people. It reminds me almost of like back in the day, the way the church used to be. You'd have all these people coming in together, and like there's a big wide mixture of people, and like nobody really cares. They're just like together. And it was that sort of thing. Like I'm talking to all sorts of different people, and we're all like chatting and hanging out, laughing and having a good time. And I'm like, this is reality.
Yeah.
Right. People coming together and stuff. It's like, it's not the crazy internet crap, where everybody's like hateful, whatever else. Like it's not that, it's people doing this kind of stuff. So
yeah. Chewy, you got your email list too.
Oh yeah. So if you guys want to ever join my Chew Crew email list and sort of get a heads up on everything that's going on or anything that I have in the works, that's kind of the first place. So you can sort of get a hold of my ramblings. By joining up, you will get an ebook on my game plan guide, which will show you how I set up my game plan for jiu-jitsu. If you look at that game plan and then go look at my matches this past weekend, you'll see the same techniques being used. And then I also have a drilling guide, basically an idea for how to implement techniques into your gym and into your training, whether you have extra mat time or extra drill time or not. And you get both of those if you go to jujitsu.net/join, JOIN, and you can get access to that. And you get my ramblings sent to you usually Monday through Friday. And again, I'll tell you about whether it's just ideas that I have going on, products that we have coming up, events that we have coming up, just whatever is going on. You'll get they get the heads up. The Chew Crew email, like for instance, when we sold the camp, like 2 months ago, we sold it on the email list. That they got the first crack at it. They pretty much got all the spots, and that was it. No one else got a chance. So that's who gets the first crack at everything. So
Patreon.
And then Patreon. And if you guys want to join the Patreon, we're going to be doing some different stuff with it, but the Patreon members will have access to it when we change it. We're going to be in the future, more details on that. But if you'd like to join the Patreon, go to www.patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu Podcast, and you can get access to a library of content we've been, making over the past couple of years with the podcast. We've got a clip from every guest that we've had on the podcast with an actionable tip for your jiu-jitsu training. We also have some videos of like rolls and narrated rolls, things like that, behind the scenes footage, everything and more. If you go to jiu-jitsu or patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. We did it. So fun hanging out with you guys on this Friday. Thank you, Fluffy Feet BMF. I'm going to say Fluffy Feet Adma. Okay.
What Fluffy Feet do?
He dropped a little a blessing on us of $9.99.
Oh, Fluffy Feet
says thank you for all the videos, and I have used many of the moves in class. Happy to hear it, bro. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Glad you could be a part of it. And with that said, we'll talk to you next time.
See ya.